that way
I
if you
said,
are too.
no,
That's
I
what you
said,
said.
I said I move around too fast.
Good evening
Germs can't
and
catch me.
welcome to the Georgetown School Committee meeting of Thursday, September 25th, 2014. If we could please rise for our pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll start the meeting with approval of our consent agenda, which I'll entertain a motion to approve regular session minutes of September 11th, 2014, governance minutes of September 11th, 2014, and acceptance of warrants number 013B15 and number 14P15.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, tonight we have a student rep. Thomas Pryor is here, and you're filling in for Vanessa Yavorski.
That's
who
correct.
couldn't make it tonight. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. So we just want to know how the first couple of weeks of school are going so far.
Everything is going well. Everyone's getting along well, getting used to some of the changes at the school. We're all very excited for the new turf field. Very exciting. The seniors are a little bitter about the parking situation, but
Understood.
I hear
we're
that.
going to be very happy once the field is in. The sports teams are doing very well so far. Still early in the season, but we're very hopeful, and we always hope our Royals will do the best they can. And October is National Anti-Bullying Month, and we're going to be having some assemblies, and all of the clubs at school will be doing something to promote anti-bullying and bullying awareness.
Oh, good.
Excellent.
That's good. I know as a senior, you probably wait all that time to be able to park.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, it'll be worth it, though.
It will.
It will be worth it.
And you'll have the rest of the year.
Of course.
November.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's good. Do you play sports?
I do. I play hockey with Mrs.
Oh,
Lundquist's
okay.
son, Jeff.
Yep.
And how's that going?
Very well. Our coach just resigned. He was there for 18 years, so we're not sure who our new head coach is going to be. So we're excited and we're sad to see Coach Burns leave, but we're looking forward to a new season.
Yeah, 18 years is a long time.
It's a long time.
That's good. Well, thank you for coming. And I know you have homework tonight, so feel free when you want to slip out, that you're more than welcome to go ahead.
Thank you.
But again, thanks for coming. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to address anything on the agenda?
Well, you're sort of on
Oh,
the agenda.
you're on the
You're
agenda.
on the
Stu, so-
agenda, Stu.
Yeah. Do you want a copy of the agenda? There is one up here. So we'll get to you.
Okay.
Are you Raquel?
Yes.
Hi Raquel, come on up.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, good.
Nice to meet you. Does your little girl want to come up and sit? And you're the president of the preschool parents group?
Yeah, so I'm Raquel Belcourt, and I'm this year's president of the preschool parents group. And I'm coming before you guys because we have 8 fundraisers that we have planned for the year. And so I wanted to get the school committee's approval before we start with any of the fundraisers. So what you have before you is the 8 proposed fundraisers that we have, more or less in chronological order. We have the Halloween dance, which is one that, from what I understand, the preschool parents group puts on every year.
Yes, it's fun.
Yeah, it's crazy. Fun
It's
to
fun.
learn, it's great.
The kids love their little costumes.
Yes,
It's
so the
much
kids
fun.
get dressed up, they can hog the Halloween candy and run around the gym, but everyone has a great time. We have, like a fog machine and a coloring station, so it's good for not only the students of the Pearly, but also we invite all the siblings to come, so it's kind of a whole big family affair.
It's fun.
And generally, that's a pretty good moneymaker for the preschool parents group. Just looking at last year's numbers, we made about $700 from this fundraiser alone. So that was a good event, a good way to kind of kick off the year last year. We're hoping that we can be just as successful, if not more, this year. The next fundraiser that we have on the list is not really an event, but it's more of just a typical fundraiser. It's the Square One Art, and I know that it's run in all the different schools, but the preschool parents group is the one that runs it out of the Pearly. And this year, we usually, I think Pembroke might actually do it at the same time, but we usually run it in the spring, but we bumped it up to have a deadline so that all the artwork that the kids create, the parents can order in time to get, novelties for Christmas. So we're hoping, actually it was a pretty big fundraiser last year. We raised about $2,500 last year for the Pearly School.
It is a successful fundraiser in all the schools.
Yeah, it is, and we're hoping that maybe by bumping it up and having a Christmas deadline, it may even be more successful. So we have that kind of ready to roll because that kind of takes a long time to coordinate all the students to create the artwork and then submit it back to square one, and then they come back with the order forms, and then they go back to get ordered, and then they come back with the product. So we're hoping that if you guys approve it today, we can kind of get started with that sooner. A new event that we didn't have planned last year that we wanted to do was a Thanksgiving bake sale. So this is something that we haven't run, but we were thinking to do it more or less around Thanksgiving time in the hopes that people will go to their relatives' homes, or maybe they're hosting something at their house, and maybe the last thing that they forgot was they didn't make a pie or they didn't make a cake or something like that. The chair of that event is very much aware of the fact that if we do sell, then obviously it has to have a lot of dietary restrictions and everything will be not free. But that is one of the events, a fundraiser that we're hoping that we can do this year to kind of maybe help parents out if they need to bring up the last minute, hostess gift or something for wherever they're going for Thanksgiving.
It's a great idea.
So will you have that during the day?
Yes, we'll probably have that during the day, but probably the day before the Thanksgiving break.
So like that Tuesday or that Wednesday half day?
I don't think it's half day at the Pearly. I think we just have the Wednesday off, or am I mistaken?
Preschool might be a little
Preschool,
different.
yeah, preschool. might
Oh,
be
okay,
different.
yeah, so I was,
I don't think
So do you think, Margaret, is it?
I think you still have it, but your dismissal would be at 11:30 on that Wednesday.
So the full day, Tuesday would be before. Obviously, is that when you're thinking of doing a full day?
well, we would do it kind of on 2 days.
Yeah.
But we would probably try and do it, especially the day before, because a lot of people will be coming out to pick up
Right.
their kids. But the 2 days maybe we'll grab different people, because a lot of the preschool kids, some only come on Tuesdays, some only come on Wednesday, Friday. So we wanted to sort of straddle those 2 days just to make sure that we got most of the parents that drop off and pick up for the preschool. The next event on the list is a holiday movie drop-off event. So what we did last year was that we did kind of a Polar Express. So we showed the movie Polar Express, and then through the fire station we got Santa to come on the fire truck, and he came and he gave out little bells to all the kids, and we handed out hot cocoa, and we had like a popcorn machine. And so we're probably doing that again. It was a really, really big hit. And that one was more of a, I wouldn't want to say a give back, but it was more kind of like an even money type of thing. It was, we did a lot to make sure that Santa was going to be there, and we rented a lot of the concessions just to have the popcorn and stuff like that. But everyone who came really enjoyed it, so we wanted to kind of do that again for the Pearly community. The next one would probably be late winter, so that would be early, probably 2015. We wanted to, and this would be more like a true fundraiser, is to do the Otis Spunkmeyer cookies. So we thought that maybe while it's still chilly out, people might be interested in baking cookies and would buy from the preschool parents group. We have like a catalog of all the different cookies, and it's the frozen cookies.
Delicious.
Yeah. So we're hoping that, I don't believe that one has been done, at least by the preschool parents group, so we don't know how successful that would be, but we're hoping that the timing that we're proposing it, which like I said would be late winter, so early 2015, that maybe it could be successful, just given that, it's a baking, staying in kind of cozy type of time.
Just to touch on that, the Spunkmeyer cookie sale, do you remember when we did that with the PTA?
Yeah, no, they were great. The cookies are great. They're easy to.
And remember they gave us samples. So we had parents bake them, and then in the line
hand them
at
out.
Pembroke, we had people walking to the cars and offering them, just so they knew how good
That's
they were.
a dirty trick.
No, but it was a really good way to do it. But we had
That
like 5
sounds-
parents that made them. It was really a good selling point, so you might wanna think of that.
Anything with
'Cause
preschools, I'm sad.
I know.
My sons like them because you could literally put them in your freezer and then just open
Yeah.
the lid and take 2 or 3 cookies
yeah,
out and
throw 'em
bake
in.
those. It wasn't like you had to, it was like on a roll and you had to ruin the roll by, cook them all. It was
Right.
perfect.
Yeah, that's a good moneymaker.
It is.
Yeah, so we're hoping I think other people have done, but I don't think the preschool parents group has
No.
done it, so we're kind of taking that one on this year. The next one is the Easter egg hunt, which is the annual Easter egg hunt, and that one is more or less, even money for us. I mean, it's very, very well attended, but
Excuse
everybody
me.
kills a lot of eggs to make sure that
Yeah.
the kids get enough. And I just realized my dog was here. So anyways, yes, the Easter money. Yes, so anyways, so it would be an even money for the preschool group. The other one that we're doing is the paint night. Now, I just wanted to highlight this because I know the PTA has also planned a paint night, but I believe the PTA is a give back to the teachers.
Yes, it is.
So I don't believe that that's a fundraiser. So I didn't know, I just wanted to highlight just in case you had any kind of reservations on whether or not to approve that one. But we thought of maybe doing it in the spring because one of the board members to the preschool parents group, she actually has a very, very big yard, and so we were contemplating is doing it out onto the tent. Because a lot of restaurants do it, but they charge you probably 80% of what you would charge a parent, so the school wouldn't make, the group wouldn't make as much. Whereas if we do it at a private home, then most of the money would probably ask for less of a donation, and most of the money will go back to the group. So that's our anticipated kind of start date is kind of a spring, once it starts to get nice and people want to go outside. And when we do a paint night, which I assume would be mostly attended by moms, but be open to any of the parents.
That sounds fun.
And then the last one is the preschool Olympic shirts. For those of you who don't know it, there's a preschool Olympic that happens every year, and we have the kids do kind of a self-portrait of themselves in class, and then we put the self-portrait on their t-shirts, and then they wear them for the Olympics. And that one is usually a pretty good moneymaker, just looking at the figures from last year, that really made our group about $800. So altogether, I believe we made more or less around $4,000 last year for the group. And what we used that money for last year is we were able to buy 5 iPad Airs for the preschool teachers, so that they could use them in conjunction with whatever they're teaching in their classrooms. We did a Pearly give back where we did a enrichment program, and I believe last year was the fairy tale circus. So we had them come, and the whole Pearly community was able to watch the circus, the fairy tale circus, and then we also purchased money for, I think we bought the books at the Scholastic Book Fair, we bought each of the teachers a book off their wish list. We also purchased mums to decorate the playground around the preschool, mums around the preschool playground. And then I believe we also used some of the money to buy just like classroom supplies or things that the teachers needed, and we bought them like holiday gifts and also teacher appreciation gifts for the end of the year. Yeah, we did a lot. I mean, it's usually at the behest of whatever the teachers believe that they need. So I know in the past we've provided the mulch in the preschool playground, but I think we haven't had to do that in the past couple of years. Maybe that's something that they want to spend this year. I usually leave it up to them to figure out, how is it best to spend the money. And last year they wanted to do the 5 iPad Airs, so that's where we put most of the money to.
I like that.
Awesome,
That's
yeah.
so nice.
So do you work with the PTA to just make sure there's similar type of events?
Yeah, so
or-
when we were planning it, I reached out to Jill Shaul and also Holly Flood for the GEF just to make sure I know that they all run their own separate events. And I think I just wanted to make sure, I think there was like the music department sometimes run stuff. So I just kind of figured out what the other fundraisers for the year were going to be, just to make sure we weren't duplicating. And if something was fairly similar, either crossing it off or maybe moving it to a different season so that it wouldn't conflict, because obviously we wouldn't want to take anything away from any other groups that are working really hard to raise money. But yeah, so I run this by the PTA and by the GEF.
That's good.
And are you all alone? Do you have a board?
Oh yeah, no, I'm definitely not alone. There, actually this year we have, I would say, about 10 other mothers that are helping us. Yeah, it's really good. So they kind of paired off and, you know, doing the various fundraisers, you know, we have 2 co-chairs for everything, just to make sure that, you know, 2 people are planning it, and it's a really good turnout. I think last year, the year before, maybe there was about 5 of us, but, you know, it still worked fine, but this year we have 10, so it's great.
That's awesome.
That's good. That is good. I think you're gonna do great. They sound like really good fundraisers.
Thank you.
So
We're
good
so
luck.
fortunate to have such
I know.
People willing to do it.
people who will do
Mhm.
this kind of work for our schools. It's really.
Sounds like you've done an excellent job communicating and coordinating with everybody, and good luck. This is wonderful. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, good luck. Okay. So the chair will entertain a motion to approve the preschool parents group fundraisers for 2014-2015 as presented.
So,
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Have a good school year. Okay, we have Camp Kiev approval. We're gonna talk about both 6th and 8th grade approval. There's the 8th grade one was not in the packet, so it was on the desk.
Yes, it was. Mrs. Bailey, or Miss, I'm gonna get that right.
Alada.
Asked Mr. Lucia if it was possible to do the 8th grade one as soon as possible, because obviously we wanna get the word out so everybody can plan on it. Since we're talking about the 6th grade, it just made sense to try to
Right.
do it for tonight.
So they're going in May, like they have in the past?
Yes.
Okay.
That's kind of a culmination.
in 6th grade in November.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, I like that November date. Does that seem to be working out?
Yeah, we think so.
Yeah.
It's a lot better that we moved it to the fall because most of the year was over when we were going in
Right.
March. So we thought it would be better to go in the fall, but not right when school begins, because we wanted some time to get used to the kids and get to know them well before we take them away for a week.
And the
just
weather,
be
I
working
think, has been
over.
better.
Yeah, the way the climate is now, it's
Yeah, you never know.
still very warm in November, so.
Yeah. Well, that's good. And you have plenty of teacher volunteers,
Yep.
which is good.
Well, actually, it's the whole team.
Well, when it said
14.
it said
14,
possibly one more. So where are you gonna grab that one
Well,
more
we,
from?
we have, there's actually 6 teachers that teach in the 6th grade.
Okay, there's 5 listed, okay.
6 teaching positions, but I think there are 8 teachers that actually teach there. So depending upon how we can arrange coverage, we may send another one of the teachers that teach across teams.
Are you gonna go up?
Yes.
You will?
Yeah, not for the week, no.
Yeah, you'll just, that's nice.
Yeah, Heidi went last year,
Has
yeah.
gone, so I think every year an administrator has gone.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, one of us goes.
Yeah, will you just stay for the day, you think?
Yeah, well,
That's a
usually
long
go up
ride.
on the parent day, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's nice. That'll be good. The kids have so much fun.
They
really
do. Now, all the kids I've spoken with have a blast.
Yep.
They all come back and say, I speak to a lot of kids. They're happy.
So the 8th grade, do you have in here if there's a need for scholarships? I didn't really get a chance to look at this. Oh, okay.
They anticipate, and it's really not based on hard facts, but they anticipate 9.
Okay,
They've written 10 in their application, so.
okay.
Yeah, and there's an opportunity for some fundraising if that needs to happen to
Yeah.
support.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think Mr.
We're having a dance to support the 6th grade one this month, October.
Yeah, and it's always good that the 5th grade celebration from last year, that they
Yes.
always have some money left over to.
Yeah, there was
they took
$700
$100.
there,
That was
so
good.
that's gonna come off the top. We're gonna have the dance, and that money will come off the top for everybody.
Okay. I'm just realizing that I have an 8th grader this year, and she's going. I just realized it.
And do you know, has the program itself, is it pretty much the same? I know it's been based on the life skills training and the OWAS anti-bullying training.
Yep.
Has it evolved? Have they talked to you about, or is it pretty much what it's been in the past?
It's pretty much what it's been in the past.
Okay.
Yep.
Which is
And
fine.
we're
I'm just
really,
curious.
reevaluating what we do in the middle school.
Mhm.
And of course, the sixth grade won't be here next year.
Right.
So,
Right.
the whole Kiev experience is being re-examined.
Right.
So,
And how effective it is over the course of the whole year and the
yeah, well,
vocabulary.
how it fits with what we wanna do
Mhm.
in the new school, seventh grade school.
Okay.
There's a lot of different programs out there, too. I mean, I love
There
Kiev.
are, there are.
It's
I
great,
mean,
but there
you know
are
about that.
comparable and,
And
you know,
some
maybe
parents
closer.
have
or-
challenges with finding funding for, you know, the overnights for as many nights.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there are places that you can find that it's one night overnight, or it's a series of days that aren't too far away. So, you know, we're just looking at all of the factors.
Sure.
But the goal is to, you know, we haven't discussed it at length, but what we have discussed is, you know, much of what you see with field trips like this is that the last year kids are in a school is the year that there's like a culminating field trip. So every year, people look forward to, oh, when I get to fifth grade or sixth grade, I'm gonna go to, you know, Nature's Classroom or Kiev or something like that. So, you know, those are discussions that we have to have, and we'll certainly come here and have them with you, but, it's an opportunity to look at a lot of things.
Do we have any idea, I don't even know if anything's gone out yet to parents?
No, we
Like
can't,
even just,
no.
That's
but
why-
even just introducing it, like, okay. So we don't know how many people are, how many kids may not attend.
No, we think that the vast majority of kids are gonna go.
Good.
So, usually they do. And, maybe 3 or 4 will stay behind.
And the ones that stay behind will have
We have a program for them.
instructional time.
Instructional.
Yeah, and we try to give them some of the concepts and stuff like that they would get if they went.
Oh, good. So you have like a teacher that knows about the Kiev experience and will
Yes.
enforce it back here.
Yeah,
Okay, that's
well, they won't get the whole thing, but they'll get some of
Well,
the
they can,
concepts.
yeah, we don't have a
Right.
rock climbing wall
Right.
and all the swings out in the
Yeah.
woods and all that kind of business, but we can communicate the team building and the leadership and the respect for each other and for others and all
Yeah.
that.
Okay, that's good. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, should I do them separate? Yeah, okay, so the chair will entertain a motion to approve the sixth grade, trip to Camp Kiev from November 17th, 2014 through November 21st, 2014 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Okay, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the Camp Kiev Leadership Camp for the eighth grade class dated May 26th, 2015 through May 28th, 2015 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
While we have Peter up here,
Uh-huh.
one of the things that I should have written in the notes and I just forgot about it, was that, you know, as Peter's been telling you, and we've been talking about in our strategic goals, one of the things we've been working on is looking at the middle school concept, and, you know, how is it going to change or be similar when we make the change. So one of the things that I want Peter to talk about is, you know, our evaluation that NELMS is doing, so, just so you're aware of that.
So they came
So
today,
NELMS is New England,
New England League of Middle Schools. And a person that works for them came today and did an evaluation. There was supposed to be 2 people, but one of the persons was violently ill with food poisoning, so she couldn't come. But that's okay. The other man came, and he's a retired middle school principal, and he's been working for NELMS for quite a while, and he works with a lot of schools. So we did what we call a focus evaluation. They have 2 types. They have a full evaluation that's a 3-day experience, and then there are more focused ones for schools that have been a middle school and are involved in the middle school concept already. So he spent the day, he met with a representative group of kids in each grade. Went to each team meeting today, visited a lot of classrooms, talked to, spent a lot of time with me and Dr. DeRoche, and talked about everything. And of course, you're probably aware of, we sent out a parent survey as part of this, and all the students were surveyed and the staff was surveyed. So with all of that information, he is going to give us a report with our strengths and some of the suggestions for some needs that we might have. And I expect that in a couple weeks. And then we'll decide where we go from there.
Which students were surveyed? Current 6th, 7th, and 8th grade
Yes.
students? And their parents?
Yes.
Well, all
Whoever,
parents, all
yeah,
parents.
whoever.
All
Any parents
No,
Parents were
Middle
asked.
school parents.
All
Middle school parents.
Yeah,
Okay,
we
that's
sent,
all,
we
yeah.
sent a link to all the parents.
To all the middle and high school parents?
No.
Oh,
No,
just
so
all
we're ju-
middle, okay. Yeah,
Nelms
when you
is
said-
middle school, so.
Right, I'm just wondering
Yeah.
who you're, because, so, we have 5th grade, parents of 5th grade, children who are 5th graders this year. There will be so they won't be in middle school next year,
Right.
so they're not, their
Right.
concerns, because their concerns are more related to the K through, okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah.
Just-
What we're trying to do is take stock and do a little evaluation of our current state of how we run our middle school
Uh-huh.
in relationship to middle schools nationally,
Yeah.
especially successful schools nationally. You know, how do you function in teams? How do you have an advisory? How do you have student engagement? You know, how do you build community within your entire school community? How do you do interdisciplinary work? There's a lot of core tenets of Carnegie Turning Point's middle schools.
Okay.
And they're looking at how we do things in relationship to those best practices
Okay.
as a way to give Peter an opportunity to take a look at that with his staff and say, all right, now, what actions would we take in relationship to what we've heard? It's kind of like a mini NEASC evaluation, except not quite as extensive.
Does it include looking at the curriculum?
Not really. A little bit. One of the comments that he made, that he thought that was, I won't say it's a need, but was kind of pointing in that way, is that that our music program drives our schedule, which he didn't think was the greatest of ideas.
Okay.
So with that regard, they look at what we offer
Uh-huh.
for non-academic things.
Uh-huh.
One of the comments that I was very pleased was that from all of the people that he talked to, we thought that the kids reported back that they were all happy, they liked the school. For the most part, the staff does too, so that's good.
Good.
Yeah. I know that the first thing he's gonna say is that we should have an advisory program, which,
We know.
we know that.
Is this a student advisory program, meaning,
No.
what is an
An
advisory?
advisory program is where there's a block of time for whatever duration that we decide on, that kids have time with an adult. It's one of the major needs that NEASC has been telling us that we need. So we need this 6 through 12.
Okay.
And for the most part, according to NELMS, that most schools develop their own curriculum with that fits the school's particular needs.
Okay.
So what that would look like, we're not sure. We're
And
gonna
how are
go-
the needs assessed? I mean, based, when you say that fit a school's particular needs, what criteria are looked at to determine what does our school need?
Well, we do that through the student survey. We do that through our curriculum. We look at our social curriculum and try to determine those things. So, where our strengths and where our weaknesses are. That part of our needs assessment is is gonna be reported out in this report that he tells us. So that's, will develop, you know, a list.
It's really to define, you know, the sense of community, the connectedness that students feel, and it's the idea of how to take a bigger school and make it smaller, and that's the idea of an advisory. You know, how do you build connections? How do you build relationships? How do you teach students tools to have to face certain dilemmas? You know, because middle school's fraught with developmental challenges.
Social challenges.
And social challenges. So sometimes I've seen advisories where they'll work on scenarios, and they'll have kids work through, you know, what are the different
Some role
options,
playing.
or some role
We'll probably do a lot of that
games.
when we're talking about bullying. So bullying is a common theme that comes up in advisory.
Sure.
And but if you look at the standard for accreditation, it's about having each child in the school having a relationship with an adult that's not their counselor. So it's about, as Carol said, relationship building and making a big school smaller, so there's a greater personal connection.
And building communication skills, helping kids talk to each other about, you know, how they think or how they feel, or, you know, what
I
challenges.
feel
do
like
they-
we've talked about this with regard to the seniors, the juniors and seniors, and the work you've done to make sure that every student has an adult in the school who would write a letter of recommendation for them, who knows them well enough. So that's, like, it seems to me that that's gonna be starting then in the middle school, or those teachers actually won't necessarily be with the students in high school, or?
No, it doesn't have to be the same person
Okay.
throughout the school.
No.
It normally changes each year.
Sure, okay.
With the idea of the more people you have, you know, every year is another opportunity to form another connection.
Sure.
The reason for teams in middle school is to do that as well.
Sure.
Right, so you have teachers that get really familiar with the students because they work with them all year long. It's a little different than when you go to high school and you have different teachers for different courses. So the advisories in high schools look a little different than they do in middle schools. But one of the things that Peter was saying is that, you know, one of the things we have planned to do is to work with NELMS to try to identify some middle schools that have these things in place and really are employing the best practices. Because sometimes you can talk about it with people, but if you see it, it's, you know, first you get to recognize that, wow, we're really doing a lot of these things already, but you also say, wow, you know, this is something, I didn't know what that looked like.
So do we think there'll be an opportunity throughout this year, once we know what the recommendations are and we've identified schools with best practices in the areas that we are needing to fill in, perhaps doing site visits to those schools?
Yes,
That's the
absolutely.
plan.
Yes.
Great.
And then
Right,
really to work with the teachers to read, you know, to be really familiar with the research so they know what the reasons are behind some of the recommendations. You know, sometimes we're so busy doing the work that we don't take time to step back and reflect and say, oh, so that's something maybe we should be thinking more about.
And one of the benefits of working with NELMS is that they're a league of middle schools,
is their thing.
so they know, you know, who has the best practices.
Wow.
So
And this will be very helpful to us when we have the full accreditation for NEASC, when NEASC comes, because they will be looking at 7 through 12.
Sure.
So to have some of these best practices in place
Sure.
prior to them coming, you know,
Site
that's
visit, yeah,
that's all gonna fit together very nicely.
That's lovely. That's great.
Okay, with all due respect, I've just been hearing about this program like since,
What, NELMS?
no,
Advisory?
the advisory program since Brian was here as principal.
Mhm.
And where are we in it? Like, how far along are we in,
We're researching it.
okay.
Part of why we sort of took stock when we changed the leadership model is one of the things we don't want to do is just try to attack a problem that we really don't know what it looks like and what we really do need. So Peter's definitely been working with some of his staff to gather information about advisories because, you know, they sent it to me and I've sent things to them. So we're aware of the fact that the advisory, whether we have an external evaluation or not, is something that we know that we need to do. Peter's been looking at social curriculums. Julie and Peter and I and others have had conversations with, you know, the organization that sort of the sequel to Responsive Classroom. But before we go and select all of these things, we really just need to figure out what is it that we're gonna do and do well. So you're right, Barbie, I mean, Brian did bring it up but
Is
he
there a
left,
goal,
so-
I mean, is in your minds, like, okay, we're gonna implement this, when we make our big switch next year,
That's right,
and the
well,
sixth
that's
graders
the
are going
goal.
over to Pembroke, we are gonna have this advisory program in place for the
I
start.
want this thing to
And a
be
social
all ready to
curriculum.
go on the first day of school
Yeah.
next year. So,
But, there's some, we're negotiating, as you know, with the teachers this year, and there's some negotiations implications, for, adding this as another period or another responsibility, so, all of these puzzle pieces will fit together.
Absolutely, but I just think if there's a deadline,
No, next
and
year.
then you work back from the deadline, saying, okay, we want this in place by this time, so these are the pieces we have to make sure.
Right.
So that nothing gets kinda, oh, well, we got so busy looking at this, we got so busy planning for this, we
Forgot that.
forgot to do that, and I just wanna make sure, it sounds
Yeah.
really
That's
important.
why, that's
It sounds
why
like
we're,
it's been
that's why
a
we're
topic
doing
that's,
the evaluation.
yeah.
Because
That's
then
great,
we're
it's
gonna
great
be
that
able
it's
to
come so
identify from
early
a
in the year.
data-driven point of view what we
Right.
really need to be doing, where our highest priorities are, because everything can't be an equal priority,
Absolutely.
as we know, right, so.
And this will be through 12th grade?
No.
Yes,
we,
advisory
Advisory
it may
program.
not be the same program.
it won't be the same.
Yeah, it'll look,
Yeah.
of course, because of the,
Right.
but the high school students would still have an adult that they would be paired with.
Yeah, we're gonna have the model in the high school is probably gonna look a little different than the middle school. The middle school model probably might be something that meets every day, and the high school would be something that maybe meets once a month. So,
But if kids go through the middle school and they understand what the relationship does, they may not need it as often once they get to
Right.
high school,
Right.
because they'll know to seek out their advisor.
yeah.
Sounds like a terrific
And
tool.
then I have to look at where our peer leader
That we have peer
program,
leaders and peer mentors.
where that, how that fits into this and how it fits.
Well, won't that be
into-
part of NOM's, that evaluation? Will that be?
Yeah,
something
they like
look
that,
at?
yeah. So,
Well, that's great.
Terrific
It's,
tool to develop self-advocacy skills that I know so many students really need.
And that
To be
developmental
able to
age is
speak up
really
to
tough.
adults around who
Yeah,
can
that's-
help them, but it's very
I mean,
hard
I
if the
will
adults
say,
don't know what's
more
going
and
on.
more, it seems to me like people, when they express concern about schools, and it's not just about Georgetown, it's anywhere, it's middle school. So I'm glad to hear we're being proactive, and I'm looking forward to hearing what's in that report. Would love to know what NOMS
Yeah,
tells us and what we're doing.
you'll be the second to know.
Do you have any idea how many people participated in the survey, or do you want to get that?
For the parents,
Yeah, the parent
I
survey.
was a little disappointed in that.
Were you?
About 30 a grade,
30 a grade?
That's
yeah,
really nice.
approximately.
So, but how many you have, I know how many kids you have, but how many have multiple? When you say 30.
Well, I think they still would, like, when I got, it was still asked, like, you hit one for if you have a child in
Right.
grade
Oh,
7,
you
and
do,
if you have
you
a child in
multiple
grade
kids,
8,
okay,
then you
right.
Yeah,
would
they-
fill out both.
Yeah,
Right.
they're separate surveys
Right. So is that
for each grade.
is that something that we could take another pass at that? To say, we
Um,
really didn't get a broad.
Well, I do an annual survey anyway.
Yeah, I know you do.
So what I would probably do is take some of those questions that we thought were really important, that we didn't feel as a representative answer, and integrate that into the annual survey that we do. We do that around January.
Is email working now, Becky?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
Yeah, that was tough, 2 days
Yeah.
without it. I mean, that must have been really difficult for,
It's
for you.
peaceful.
But you feel a little like not in touch with what's
Well,
going on.
yeah, you're waiting
Then
for
it's
the
gonna come
bombs
right
to
back
go
at
off.
you. Yeah, you get 200
Yeah,
emails, you have
I
to
think it
answer.
was like last night or the night before, there's all of a sudden 80
Yeah, like at
emails.
1 o'clock in the morning, it was like, oh, now I feel compelled to answer
It's
these.
like when the electricity goes off, and then like in the middle of the night it goes back on, all the lights are off, and
Yeah.
things are beeping.
Yeah. And so I didn't hear many complaints like from parents that they,
Well, I
when they
think
heard the problem.
The Connect Ed, I think, helped out
Yeah.
a lot
that
on
was
that.
huge.
So
Yeah.
you didn't hear of many,
I didn't hear any.
no. Margaret, did you?
No, because again, the Connect Ed, we
Good.
send that out so that parents would understand if we.
Although I didn't understand why I got an email from Connect Ed if the email was down, but that's okay, I don't need to know.
I know,
Because it's.
Oh, because it's not,
the
it's
answer
doing
to that
external.
Yeah.
That is not, doesn't come from our server.
Okay.
Right. Hopefully that's part of your business resumption plan. I mean,
Okay, that's good, as long as it's
Yeah.
back up, so that's good.
Yes, it's all good.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing how
Yeah, this is
Nelms
exciting.
looks at this and gives us the information that hopefully we can work with and do better if we need to, and,
Mhm.
yeah, good.
And
Thanks,
then I'll
Katie.
need some
Speaking of budget-
coaching if we decide to do away with Kiev on how to tell my daughter that she's not going to Kiev in
Well,
6
well, you don't need to tell her anything yet.
Yeah,
We
we
haven't
don't know that.
have nothing to
Definitely
worry
decided
about
that,
her.
right?
No,
Not a
no,
definite?
we have definitely not decided
Okay.
anything.
Yeah.
Look, we-
She'll be coming
curious
to
if
this
there was a
She's
budget
employed right now.
impact that would
She's just looking
potentially
forward to
put
it.
this program at risk.
I don't know if it would put it at risk, but the good part about when we're doing it is that if anything that we need to do, we can budget for. It's like when we, if
So the
something.
timing will work.
Yeah, and it's also something that I may put in my school improvement plan.
Mhm.
So the whole idea of moving the school improvement plans into, the fall is a great idea on so many levels.
Mm. That's good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Yes,
Thank you.
We have Chairman of the Board of Selectmen,
Mhm.
Stu Regenberg here, that wants to talk about the Common Core.
Doesn't hear you.
Very good.
Okay.
Come on up, Chairman Regenberg.
Good evening.
How are you?
Oh, thank you.
Welcome.
We don't have all night to discuss all that.
That's homework.
I was expecting like a 5-hour
We're
session.
expecting a 5-hour
I got coffee brewing
This
down
was
there.
like a working session for you?
Yeah, no, I've obviously been doing a little homework on Common Core.
Yeah.
Thank you all for your time. And I want to sincerely apologize to our chair because I upset her on a post that I made on Facebook that said that the chairman of this board was silent on Common Core. So I apologize for doing that and upsetting you.
Well, it was definitely an inaccurate statement. Let's be clear, it was an inaccurate statement. You and I have talked, Stu, on, a few occasions socially
Mhm.
about Common Core. Conversations were short, and you know the procedure. You could always come to
Yeah.
us and talk about things.
Right. And-
So
and-
it definitely could have been avoided.
Right, and I, as we talked about,
You apologize.
I clarified that, and what I really meant was the board has not really addressed Common Core publicly. So
Okay, well, let's talk about it tonight.
And like I say,
Well, I'm glad you
In
accepted my
retrospect-
invitation to come.
Thank you, and in retrospect, we would have done it differently, so, my apologies. So, I appreciate the time here. I'm here more of, as a parent at this point, because I don't speak for the Board of Selectmen on this topic, at least not yet. We will be putting this on our agenda, for the Board of Selectmen. But at this point, I'm just here, unless we have to get into some town business, I have the hat on of a parent of 2 children in the school system in 7th and 9th grade. And I have a whole bunch of questions that I'd love to, if you might, I just kind of go with them, and I know we won't get the answers tonight, so I think it's just more of a, let's discover
Open
this.
discussion,
Yeah,
sure.
let's discover it and then see where we can go and get some open dialogue and start engaging parents and everything. For one, what is Common Core? And by the way, on Tuesday night up in Newburyport, there was a Common Core forum, and it was great that Ms. Lundquist and the chair was there. Thought it was good information, and I know you guys know the pro side, and that was more of the con side or the anti side of it. But interestingly enough, when I was had that on my calendar at home, my wife said, well, what are you doing up in Newburyport Tuesday night? And I said, oh, I'm going to a Common Core forum. And if nothing, my wife is highly engaged in our children's education in the school and with the teachers and our sped teachers and everything else. And it was a little shocking to me that she didn't know anything about Common Core, because she's highly engaged in what's going on in our kids' education. So I think it's important that the district and the school committee fully understand what Common Core is, fully communicate that to the parents, because there hasn't been any communication that I'm aware of to the parents about what Common Core is. It's people that I just talked to in general around town and friends, they're not aware of what Common Core is. I seem to be the only guy in town ringing the bell about it, the other question is, why is it, I have about 9 questions, so sorry. Why is the district adopting it? Number 3 question is, we haven't had public information sessions on Common Core, with the parents. This is the largest pending change in American education in America's history. And nobody's aware of it. It's happening behind closed doors, it's happening in the dark. The public is not involved. The parents certainly are not involved. The state legislatures are not involved. And the unions are barely involved, and in fact the unions are pushing against it. We have a new
MTA.
president of the MTA. She's against this. I understand she's against it for different reasons than the curriculum, but she's even against it. Number 4 is, what are the projected costs of Common Core in this park test? We're doing park in this town, not the other one, right?
No, we voted to stay with MCAS.
No, but are you doing are you going to be doing the whatever the
park?
Yeah, but the park sample test or whatever this year? No.
No.
Okay. Okay. But I know we were talking.
We are
about
one of the
park.
districts that stayed with MCAS.
Okay, and I know we were talking about park at one point earlier in the year
Yes.
and all that.
Yeah.
And so, as I understand it, the MCAS test cost is somewhere around $4 or $5 basically per student or per test or whatever. And the park and these Common Core tests are all very technology driven and require computers and all that. And that is somewhere north of $30 a test. So, it's important that we understand as a district and school committee, if we adopt this, how are we going to pay for it? Because that's a 600% increase in the current testing fees that we're used to and have budgeted for in the past. So that's a huge concern, and that putting the Board of Selectmen hat on is really where it involves the Board of Selectmen and budgeting and that piece of it. Have parents, assuming we end up taking place in park, well, we haven't taken place in park, or we don't plan on it at this point, right?
By choice. I mean, we don't
Yeah.
know what's gonna happen to next
Right,
year.
once the mandate's
yeah,
over.
mandate.
Okay. So, if we were a park sample test or whatever they call that, parents could opt out and not have to do that, so that's irrelevant because we're not doing that, so,
Right.
thank you.
Well, would that be, okay, I think maybe my question would be, they can opt out, which they talked about on Tuesday.
On that program,
So,
that's a
so would it
test,
just
right?
be for this year because it's, okay,
That's how I
so
understood.
if it becomes mandated, it's not like, you can't opt out of MCAS?
No, they definitely were trying to, as you know, because we talked about it, they were trying to encourage districts to really go with the park. That's why they did the hold harmless.
Mhm.
Remember, you couldn't be penalized
That's what it
in
was,
that
hold harmless,
first year.
right.
Yeah, but that wasn't the direction that we went in.
Okay. Well, thanks for sticking with them, guys.
You're right.
Because that seems to be the one that's working.
Well, we do use MCAS, I think, very strategically, and, we do see it as a lever for improvement. And I think parents appreciate seeing their children's scores year after year,
Yeah.
and seeing the strengths and weaknesses and how they're improving. And we use it for more district-oriented
District-wide.
discussions.
Yeah.
But it goes down right to the parent level, so the parent has a lot of good information.
Well, the great news is and congratulations to you and your team, is that according to, I think it was Boston Magazine, last August, we were in the top
25th. We were
20
20
percentile or so.
No, we were 25th.
25th in the state, and where are we now? We still
No.
1 or 2 from the bottom of per pupil spending?
We're still in that
Yeah.
bottom tier.
Well, I mean, that's a huge bang
It's a
for the
huge-
buck,
it's
and
a
it
huge bang
says
for
a
the
lot
buck.
about your team.
Mhm.
And
And
so
the kids we have.
congratulations to you and your team, and thank you. And a lot of the districts that are just pouring money in and getting worse scores, it's not all about the money. I mean, you know, we've had challenges with our student, my family, and I gotta say, you know, your teams have stepped up, and I've been really
Nice.
pleased with,
Thank
you
you.
know, with your team. So, you know, I hear mixed from different parents,
Of course,
but
yeah.
personally,
You're
you
gonna have
know,
that
I
everywhere.
think you guys have done a great job, you know,
Thank you,
working
Stu.
with us. So we very much appreciate that. One of the other questions is what is the special education plan for Georgetown once we do adopt it? Because as you know, MCAS took quite a while to settle in and kind of get integrated into special ed. The other thing that's really concerning and quite frankly scary is that there's massive data collection with this Common Core curriculum. And, you know, privacy protection, there is none based on how these standards are written and what's coming up. So, you know, the district and the school committee really needs to look at it and go, are there policies that we need, that we should, that we have to put in place to protect the privacy of the students and the parents? There's massive data collection, and it's all without parental consent by law. And that is unconstitutional. And that is scary, because the data collection they're talking about is huge. It's retina scans, it's facial recognition, it's bio data, fingerprinting, social security numbers, school ID, home address, parents, political beliefs, religious beliefs, sexual behavior, sexual orientation, extracurricular activities, test scores, and dozens upon dozens upon dozens more of pieces that are coming
All
in
of
the
this
data collection.
is connected to the Common Core,
Yes.
It's more connected to
Park.
park.
put to Park.
But Park is Common Core, so.
I-
Park
Well,
is a
Park-
Common
no,
Core
I-
testing standard.
But they're but I think they're two different things, and I
No,
think
they're
you
not.
might.
There's
well-
Common Core curriculum, and Park is the testing of the
I-
Common Core curriculum.
I understand that, but I think that any school, right, you have a curriculum, and I can't speak to what the legal obligations are here, what the legal implications are, but there's what you do in your curriculum, there's what happens in your school, there's what happens in your classroom, and then there's testing. And it seems to me that if you just say, if we go with Common Core, that means all of this privacy data is going to be violated. I just don't think you can make that assumption that your privacy is going to be invaded in that way if Georgetown adopts Common Core.
It's written into the law that private companies have total access to the data, and these are the testing companies. The federal government has
But
it.
nobody's-
Other districts, other states, and anybody that wants it can have the data and can grab that data access. It's written into the Common Core standards and the whole, whatever you want to call it, mandate that's coming down.
Is this your understanding, Carol?
No,
is this your understanding, Julie?
but I'm
But
open to the discussion.
This again is why we're here,
I think
because
it's
this is
yeah,
all
it's
happening in
certainly
the dark.
They
and
did talk
I'm not
about this
sure
on
you guys
Tuesday
are
night.
aware of that.
I wasn't aware of it. They did
Needs
talk
to be
about it at
fully
the
vetted.
meeting that Pam and I attended on Tuesday evening. It was, you know, it
Who's
says,
this they?
well,
But
it's, you know, it was a anti-Common
It was
Core
Common Core
meeting.
Forum.
I
yeah.
understand that, but I really wonder.
So I can't find like anything that actually substantiates that or that says, yeah,
I'll
you
dig
know.
it out. I have it somewhere. I mean, it's.
I would
I mean,
think, though, they would have to follow HIPAA privacy rules.
That's what they do.
You
But
have
I
to
wonder-
follow
Again,
HIPAA privacy
this
rules.
was a top-down. This was a top-down decision, and as you know, where Common Core came from. You know, it came from the top down, And, I mean, specifically, if you're not aware of it, it was,
Well, it was an initiative of the Governors Association
Well,
of
it
all the
was
different states, is that
back
right?
in '09, the Common Core State
Initially.
Standards Initiative, as they say, was launched in 2009 by state leaders. And they say including governors, state commissioners of 48 states and 2 territories in D.C. through the National Governors Association Center for Best Practices and the Council of Chief State School Officers.
Right.
But really what this was it's funded by Bill Gates. It was endorsed by the Education Department, the Federal Education Department. Arnie Duncan has been pushing this down, and it went right across the top chain of command in state education. Never landed in your laps. You guys are the bosses. You run the district. You're her boss. We're your boss. It's never been vetted. This is a public policy that's coming down the pike right now that is the largest change in American education in America's history. And the state legislatures are just hearing about it. The school committees are just hearing about it. It was top down rather than bottom up, and policy in America for 2 centuries has been bottom up. And it hasn't been vetted. There have not been public forums in our town educating or even talking about both sides of the equation to the parents, and people don't know about it. And it's gonna forever change the education system. And what most people don't understand is that these PARCC tests, or whatever you want to call them, these standard tests, are going to, if this gets implemented, are going to be public school, private school, parochial school, religious school, home school. Everybody, including colleges, are going to have to be on this. This is the federal takeover of the school system, and local school boards like yourselves and parents and administrators are going to totally lose control of the education system. And the education system in America is based in local, not in federal. And this is just an unforgivable grab by the federal government to take over education. And if it gets adopted here in the state, we're the #1 state for scores.
Mm-hmm.
So what will happen is we're going to dumb down our curriculum by 2 or 3 notches to then be on par, because this is designed for every state, one size fits all. And so we're up here at #1. If you're at the bottom and you're at the top, you're going to get squeezed in the middle for the standards to then try and make everybody equal and take that bell curve out. They're trying to flatline and make everybody equal. And I'm sorry, America's not equal. You know, life's not equal, life's not fair. But why would we spend $250 million from Race to the Top money in this state that was awarded to this state to trash MCAS, which is the best program in America?
Well, we didn't do Race to the Top either.
You know? Well, no, I know. I'm not saying you, but I'm saying the state.
Yeah.
And basically, Race to the Top was, I'll use the term a bribe, because that's what it was, to the states to fully implement Common Core. And Common Core is, if you start really getting under the covers of it, it is a loss of control on the local level completely. I mean, I have a great example of not even understanding my daughter's math a couple of years ago on that rubric. I mean, really? I got some square that's...
Oh, you're talking about from everyday math?
Oh my God! I mean, like, I can't even help my daughter with math.
But that's
you know?
but that's not Common Core.
No,
that's a
but
local
that's
decision.
all,
That's
you
a
know,
local
it's
decision.
Like, really? And
So-
crazy stuff. But it is the Race to the Top money. States were incentivized. I use the term bribe because that's what it was. We're incentivized to take the money and start building their standards to Common Core. What will happen is, when that money runs out, you're not going to have money to be paying for the exams. And like I said, the exams are going to be very expensive compared to what we're used to in MCAS.
We're not paying for the exams though. The state pays for the exams. We will have to
But-
be available. We have to have stuff available to
Right,
take them.
technology. will have to
Okay,
be-
I
we've
would
never-
take that with a grain of salt
Well,
from
we've
the
never
state.
expended any money for state
I know,
testing.
but I would. But again,
Whether it's MCAS or
it's
private.
going to come out of the taxpayers' dollars, and that's you and I. And as an example, I'll put the Board of Selectmen hat on. The state had a 5% increase in budget, revenue, whatever, this fiscal year.
Yeah.
Any of you know how much of an increase we got in Georgetown from the state? Any
No.
guess? Any guess? Give me a number.
But that has to do.
0.1%.
Mm.
You know, so the states aren't really helping the towns out. So, you know, you're going to be charged with buying the technology because it's an unfunded mandate.
No, we have always said that.
You know what I mean? And that's a huge problem. So that's where we are. But I just think it's important that we have some very
just two questions, Kate.
very deep discussion with parents and information to parents, and both pro and con on both sides. You know, why are you for it? Why would you be against it? And vet it out, because it has not been vetted out locally at school committees virtually anywhere in America.
So
I mean,
the thing that comes to mind for me is how do you make that happen?
What, the engagement with parents? I mean,
Around this issue, and
I mean, it's not easy, but I think it's informational forums. I mean, you've got a great informational forum coming up on the
Soil.
naturally
I mean,
occurring
actually,
soil.
And we
Dr.
do-
DeRocha regularly presents to us about curriculums and curriculum changes, which are reviewed at a
Yeah, I think it would be
local
if we did
level on a
series
regular
of
basis, and
workshops.
she's actually spoken quite a bit about Common Core.
You know, I think a
And how
series
we
of workshops would be
incorporate,
good.
and how the Common Core is incorporated into the Massachusetts state frameworks, which we build our curriculums, our own curriculums around.
Well, you can only adjust it to 15%.
so I
You can only tweak your curriculum up to 15%.
But I mean, it's to me, Common Core isn't new. I mean, I realize I'm on the school committee, but I've heard about it. I mean, you're saying that this is just coming up for people.
It's been around
for quite a while.
I've been hearing about it, hear about it on the news, I read about it in the newspaper, so all of this information that Carol shared with us in our packet comes right off the internet. So it's not like it's something that's being hush-hush, you know.
No, it was passed and mandated to the states hush-hush. It was not run through the state legislature. It was a top-down approach, and the states glommed onto it because they were hundreds of millions of dollars were waved in their nose.
Well, as far as like forums, you know, I think we do a great job with parent notification. When there's an issue that we hear about that parents, you know, don't have the right information or wanna know more about it, you are the only person that has ever approached me about Common Core.
That's my point.
I-
Nobody knows about it.
Well, I know, that's what you're saying. I know,
They don't.
that's
I
what
mean,
you're saying.
Put 25 people in here, and 3 of them will be
I know,
like,
but how do
we have
we-
a lot of
but-
information on our website about our curriculums?
Right.
People have
And
curriculum
the question
questions.
is it the responsibility of the school committee to make sure that the populace is informed? I can't be policing people and out telling them, listen to the news and read the newspaper and be sure to read the education section, because there's always changes happening.
Right.
There are always changes happening in education. That if there's one thing you can count on in education, it's that there's going to be a new
Always.
wave. It's always, and schools are always having to find ways to fund and to deal and to manage. And I think that my impression, serving on this committee, is that the administrators in this district do a tremendous job of sharing information. Now, granted, a lot of it gets shared in this forum, but this is a public forum, and our agendas are posted to the public, and anybody can attend one of these meetings, and anybody can watch this meeting on television. So for you to say that the schools should be having additional public forums, when I happen to think that the people who run our schools already give above and beyond what they're contracted to give to this community, I think you're asking for them to be superhuman. Where do you want to find the money to compensate these people for their extra time?
I'm not asking for the
I
teachers
mean-
to do it. I'm asking for the school committee and the district to sponsor
But the
it
district-
and have information sessions for parents
And who is
at
going
the
to
school
provide that?
or in some other public place, that you have the pro side and you have the con side, both discussing it and talking about it, because it has not been discussed. And it has been brought up. It
The
has
other,
not been
the other
brought
night
up.
was definitely not, there was no pros and cons.
No,
the other night. That was strictly.
No, trust me, you guys are well steeped in the pro, okay, being a school district.
Well,
I
no,
get it.
no,
But
the
pro
information
and
that
the
I get
con
is
side
from,
needs to be presented to the public. It hasn't been.
But I
And
would disagree.
The
I
school
mean,
committee,
if you listen to
you guys represent 53% of the taxpayers' dollars in this town.
we know that.
So
Absolutely.
for you to sit here, Elena, and say, I don't think it's our responsibility to educate people about Common Core, you're completely off base.
Well, I mean, I would
Completely
say
off
that
base.
any of
Because
our
it's-
parents
it's
that,
changing education in America forever. And it hasn't been discussed by your board to any of the parents. It hasn't been discussed on television. There's been no discussion about Common Core from this
well,
board.
I mean,
And that's all I'm asking is, let's have a wholehearted discussion and let's have some information sessions.
And-
And I'll be happy to work with you to set them up. I mean,
I,
go ahead,
no,
sorry.
I'm sorry. I just want to, I guess repeat that we actually do have regular informational, sessions. Dr. DeRoche does present about our curriculum here on these school committee meetings on a fairly regular basis. And any parent that does have questions about their child's curriculum or, what the schools are teaching, they're very welcome to come and speak to any of our administrators, teachers, get their questions answered. Not to mention that there is quite a bit of information about about the process that we go through in Georgetown to create the curriculums that we have and the content of those curriculums. It's all open, it's all public information. It's not secretive.
right, it's transparent. I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
The only thing
I
I
mean,
would
we're
add
we're
is.
always willing to talk to parents who have questions. That's not,
I'm
we
just
would
saying-
definitely want to engage the public
I would
in that.
think as
But
a responsible board, knowing that the biggest change in American history is coming to education, would be on a proactive stance with information and talking a lot about this. And there's been nothing said to any parent in this town about it from this board. That's all I'm saying. And I would think that you would be highly engaged and be wildly concerned that there's a major change coming, and
I don't know that
it's
there's a
gonna take the
major
power
change.
away from you and your district leader and the parents, and there's been no discussion about it. It's just, oh, well, it's what the state tells us we're doing. Well, no, you guys are the board. If you have the power, you are
we do
the
have
boss
local
of the
control.
school district, and you should be talking to people about this, and you should be having lots of discussions, and it should be a very proactive discussion out to the parents. I mean, I've served in this town forever. I was a fireman. I did this cable committee here. I'm a board of selectmen now for 4 years.
we do a lot.
I get
Yeah.
that people are busy. Well, you guys are busy too. You're serving on boards, but how many people show up to a meeting? I mean, unless
They're all at
unless-
home watching.
Well,
Thank you for being
yeah, like 4 people. Our ratings are 4. But
We always
be
like it when
surprised, the
people
children
come.
in
We
Pearly,
always
when they see me,
appreciate
I saw
people
you
coming.
on
oh
TV.
god, yeah, there you go. Get ready
Like a
to
movie
beat
star.
this, please.
Like a movie
Yes.
star.
No, but you know what I'm saying. But it is, people are busy, and I'm just saying that the majority don't have a clue about Common Core. What it is, number one, how it's going to affect everything going forward, how they're going to lose control, how you're going to lose control, how the district's going to lose control, and the exorbitant costs and the big data gathering and the loss of privacy that we're looking at. So, should be discussed. And I'd be happy to work with you guys to help figure out some public forums.
Well-
I'm gonna be bringing in pro and con people to the Board of Selectmen to actually talk to us about Common Core. And I say, I'm bringing in a pro and I'm bringing in a con, and it's gonna be happening this fall.
Well, Stu, it would be helpful to me, because I'm not sure that this is always clear to me exactly. When you talk about the Common Core, are you talking about the standards themselves, that the actual knowledge that are, the skills that kids are expected to know and be able to do? Or are you talking about the issue of these tests that have the potential to, have children failing, more children failing, it's different, it's a different way of looking at testing. and that's aligned up to the curriculum. So I'm struggling with, is the objection to the curriculum, because we can speak to the actual content of how we build our curriculums, and they're not exclusively Common Core. Massachusetts is actually the model for Common Core. And when we could tell you that we've been adjusting curriculum since 1999, right? Because the frameworks keep changing.
Right.
And the a national curriculum, which is kind of what I'm thinking you're thinking the Common Core is becoming. National curriculum started when George Bush was in office, when we had No Child Left Behind. That was always part of the plan. That and vouchers and a few other things was to standardize the curriculum so that we didn't have states that were failing the children. Because if you study the history, what we'll see is that there are states that have high stakes but low standards. So the standard to graduate is below an 8th grade level.
Right.
But there are a lot of states that are the opposite, and then Massachusetts is high stakes and high standards.
Right.
So
They try to equalize them. And that was
so what we find in the adjustment in our curriculums is we're making tweaks and we're following the Massachusetts standards, which have Common Core embedded in them. They're not exclusively Common Core, but they're definitely embedded. And I guess what we want to ask the people who are against it is, what is it specifically about those standards that people don't believe children should know and be able to do? Or what skills are in the Common Core that are a problem? Because in our sense, from what we're talking about with our teachers, and we're getting the results, and the college and career ready, our students go to college and do very well, come back, report it. So we've always lined up to the standards, and these standards haven't changed. What they have done is they've gotten fewer standards. Of course, they're only in math and English, and math, you know that. They've become clearer. So it's easier for our teachers to work with these standards than it was with all of the little standards that were not tied together quite as well. So I guess what we're saying is we don't feel we're indoctrinating kids. We feel like the body of knowledge that students need to know and be able to do is a solid body of knowledge. And it doesn't take the ability for teachers to teach the way they want to teach. Because if the standard says you and I have to teach the water cycle, all students need to understand and be able to demonstrate their understanding of the water cycle, you may teach it in a way that's very interactive, and you bring in water and all this stuff, and maybe I teach it in a different way.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's about, did the kids learn it,
Right.
not that I taught it. So that if that's not the objection, like what the curriculum actually is, then it seems to me that the issue is more the test, and the issue of what that test is going to do and how much accessibility does a testing company have to that. Because what I don't understand is the same testing company, right? And in MCAS, there always were identifying information that went in, that got submitted, and as we talked about, HIPAA and privacy laws. So I want to learn more about that, because I don't know how that's different, because it seems to me it's always been the case.
Well, they mentioned their company Pearson.
But
That
Pearson's
was
the
it
same
Pearson?
company. But Pearson's the same
right, it was
company.
Pearson.
So when we've given MCAS for the last, 10 years, 15 years, the same testing companies ask for that same information. So that's what I'm just trying to understand, because that isn't something that I've heard. I want to know more about that.
Based on what I've been reading, this is going way deeper than that.
But Park is definitely a discussion that changes the landscape a little bit.
Yeah, well, but Park
So that's what I'm trying to.
is the testing component of the entire Common Core.
But the standards in Massachusetts have been the same. We've been using them for MCAS, and our understanding is that they're also going to be applicable to Park. What we have had to make adjustments on is there's more nonfiction emphasis in Park and in the Common Core standards than there was necessarily.
And less classical.
There's still classical in there. See, that's what I would
No,
like
there's
somebody
definitely-
for Common Core to tell
It's definitely
me.
around that, but the whole
Okay.
Common Core
It's the
initiative as a whole, I
Right.
just have a problem
With it being top down.
generally because it's top down and it has not been vetted at the local level and with the parents and with state legislatures.
But parents don't, but with all due respect to parents, and I'm a parent, I necessarily wouldn't expect my school district to say, this is the curriculum we're teaching, do you like it? You know, obviously, I would expect there to be parent guides, which we have posted on Julie's website, that say these are the curriculums that we teach. I would certainly want people to, if there was a huge change, to explain it to me. We're just trying to figure out
But-
what the huge change is that you're talking about.
The huge change is Common Core as a whole. The textbooks, it's all social justice driven. I mean, I emailed you and Barbie one
Yeah,
night
yeah, yeah.
because I was
You
sitting
had
there
an
with
issue
my
with it.
with my daughter reading the social studies book, and it said America's a democracy, right there in a social studies book. I'm sorry, America is not a democracy. It's a constitutional republic, and that is in the book. It says that my sixth grader's reading
Right.
in your school system that says, oh, America's a democracy. No, it's not.
But
It's the farthest thing that you can imagine from a democracy.
Understood.
But that's the kind of stuff that's written into all of this indoctrination that's going on in the textbooks.
But you and
so the textbooks, pardon me,
Yeah.
the textbooks are all social justice left-wing propaganda.
Okay.
They're not teaching American history. They're not teaching American exceptionalism. And yes, the park is the foundation for the whole piece of it. And there's a lot of problems, and it just hasn't even been discussed
But
with
textbooks,
parents.
you and I used, you know, we all use textbooks.
I know.
And textbooks are produced in Texas and California, generally speaking, a lot, and they're aligned to whatever the curriculums are. When we use textbooks in our classroom, we use them to teach the standards. So I know that issue came up about the textbook. Now, the question is, was that part of what your child was being asked to learn? You know, I mean, we can't control what gets written in textbooks, because
know,
the
but-
textbooks that you read and I read probably had those same kind of
It
things.
was on whatever she was doing for homework.
I know. So the point is that textbooks, you know, as they're old as time, and I'm sure there were things in
This
textbooks
was a
that.
Common Core textbook.
Okay.
It said
No,
Common Core curriculum right on the front cover.
Okay. Well, we have not bought programs or curriculums because they're aligned to the Common Core. We have bought
Well, the book
programs.
she comes home with has
Well,
it.
I'd have to see the book, because is it
I
history
don't think
book?
we have any
It was
We
a
haven't-
sixth
history
grade
books.
social studies
But
book.
we haven't,
Just on
I
that
mean, we
piece.
haven't bought any new sixth grade social studies books in a very long time, so
Then maybe it
I'll
was
take
one
a
of the-
look at
maybe
it.
it was a workbook or
Unfortunately.
something.
I'll take a look at
It might have been some workbook.
I'll definitely take
It
a
was-
look at it, Stu,
If
because
I
it.
remember, I think it was a soft cover book, but I
Okay,
don't fully
I'll look
recall.
into that.
But again, you know, it's a major transformation's going on in American education, and it just hasn't, we haven't had discussion at the local level because it was top down. And the school board is the authority. And I would think you guys would be on high alert about it and be discussing it and be bringing it up and be vetting it regularly and with the parents. And it hasn't been happening. So that's why I'm here tonight, just to, you know, let's start talking about it and let's have some discussion about it. Because if you poll the parents, I guarantee you 95% of them would come back and not even know what Common Core is. You know?
I would just caution against having a pro and con argument as the framework of whatever that discussion is, because the room is going to be 50-50. There's going to be no dialogue. It's going to be Common Core is great, Common Core is terrible, and no opportunity for actual discussion.
Okay. I mean, we could do it as.
I mean, I don't know what it looks like, but
I just think it's important that you at least have a session where you lay out what Common Core is. What is it all about? What are the standards? What is Park? What's coming at
And
us?
if that was the case, I would think it would need to be somebody that would be an expert on Common Core. It can't be just somebody that,
Right. No, I think you go to the Mass Education, you know, board or whoever, and have them come in. And then the other side of the coin is you run another session that talks about what the perils of Common Core are, so that people can be fully vetted. And either one, they can have a discussion. I agree with you, Michael. If you probably have a pro and con, it's just kind of more of a debate or whatever you want to call it, you know, or something like that. But I just think it's important that people understand what it is and what's involved,
You know,
because nobody does. I mean, it's and from a national perspective and from more and more districts, the more people start hearing about it and start looking under the covers on it, the more and more people are finding they're not liking it.
I mean, it would have to be somebody with an authority that was, respected on all sides, because at the presentation on Tuesday, it was stated that there are 25 states that have accepted the Common Core, and 11 of those dropped out, so that now it's only 14.
Right.
Well, I did some research on the internet, and I found that 45 states had accepted it, and 5 of them
It's
have dropped
45.
out. 45, and now, so there are 40 states that have accepted it. So those are very different numbers,
Yeah.
obviously coming from different sources.
Yeah.
So, if you were going to put out information, you need to be able to.
Yeah, I mean, can you ever verify information
Verify
100%?
the
that's
Yeah.
hard part.
Check
That's
that.
the
What I,
hard part.
what I find, what I
That's the
find
hard
most,
part.
so as a parent, I accept that public education is going to go through broad sweeping changes on a constant basis, right? That the way my kid is taught in school is not going to be the way I was taught in
Right.
school. It's not going to look familiar to me, and I accept that because things change all the time. But what I find from attending these meetings on a regular basis is that the administration in Georgetown does a very good job of informing us how these changes that, yes, are mandates or trends or whatever, how they're being integrated, how they're being adapted and integrated into our schools. I find that they do a very good job of saying, okay, this is what we have a choice about, and this is why given this choice, we made a decision to go in this direction, or we're not sure which direction. What does the school committee think? For instance, we took a vote. Should we go MCAS? Should we go Park this year? I mean,
I think you voted the right one, by the way.
thank you.
And that was several meetings. We
It
had
was several meetings. That's what
several
I.
meetings.
No, I
but
remember, I
we-
saw some of them, and I was
we-
like, wow, this is.
We
yeah.
get
very
all of this
carefully at the pro and con.
information.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not an expert on Common Core. I don't have a binder of information that you have. I've listened to news programs. I've heard, experts from both sides. I've heard these arguments presented. But what most concerns me is, when it comes down to day-to-day life in our schools, in the school that my daughter's attending, what does it mean? And I feel like the administrators here in this forum do a pretty darn good job of helping me to understand what does it mean for my child's educational experience. And what I'm saying to you is that what they do here is not just for us, it's for the benefit of the public, that these meetings are open to the public and anybody can come at any time. You can see the agenda. So, Carol said, what do you want on the agenda? So we'll make curriculum an item on the agenda that gets discussed at several meetings here. And we invite the public to show up and to bring their concerns. I think that is a district and a town committee doing its job. We're not having secretive meetings. We're listening. We have school leaders who attend the statewide meetings, who get the information, and then they interpret it for our schools. And they share with us what that process is. So I'm saying we already have these forums. Why do we need to create more?
It's the age-old question. Like I said, people are busy and they don't know what they don't know.
Absolutely, but
Okay?
but that's
as a board, I would think that you would be highly engaged in vetting, discussing the pros and cons about a major change like this that's going to affect America's education system for the next 200 years, assuming we're all still around.
Well, so yesterday I had, Gary, I'll give it.
That's
just-
wishful thinking.
Not us, but us collectively as a country, so
So
to speak.
yesterday, the superintendent and I had a meeting with the union president. And at the end of the meeting, we just happened to ask him, what do you hear
What do you
from?
think?
Well, yeah, we
What do
just
you
asked
hear
him, like,
about?
do
Yeah, what
you
do you hear
hear
about
from
it?
the teachers?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and he had said that he said he heard nothing, like no gripes. He's satisfied with it. So I hate to think like the public watching this tonight is feeling like unease after this meeting. Because as you were talking, I'm almost like, oh my goodness, like,
No, but
what is
that's
our
what I'm-
education coming to?
That's what I'm saying, is nobody is aware of that, and it is coming, and you should be
But we don't
alarmed,
know-
and you should be scared, and you should wake
Well,
up and vet it out. And
But
have
I-
a discussion and really get under the
have
hood and know what it
discussions,
is.
And we
you know?
do vet it out, and that's why Dr. DeRoche presents to us when she does, is that for us to give our feedback, and we do research before we come to the meetings
Let me
on
give you an
what she.
example. And so,
We do vet it
no,
out, we do discuss it.
you guys, you guys are open and you have meetings and you have a agenda, and I know you always have public discussion on it and things like that. That's not what I'm saying. And the school system, I think, does a pretty darn good job communicating to the parents and everybody else. So Georgetown, is probably more of the exception, so to speak, around Massachusetts.
Yes.
But as an example, again with my Board of Selectmen hat back on, we had the Department of Revenue come in and do basically what do we call it, an audit,
Yeah, it's an
so to
audit.
speak, you know what I mean? It was a financial review basically of the town. They came back with a 35 or 39 page booklet of, whatever, recommendations, whatnot. One of the recommendations was a town charter, creating a town charter.
I remember
And there
that.
are two very
Yes.
distinct paths to go on to do that. Now, as a Board of Selectmen member, if we are gonna change the form of government in this town, I sure as hell would make sure that I was ringing the alarm and letting people know about it and having a lot of discussion about it and having open forums if we were gonna have a town charter. That's a major, major structural change in the town government.
Yes.
And me and my board would be all over information sessions and all over talking about it and having it on our agenda and discussing it. That's my point, is nationwide. I'm not here just for you guys. I'm just saying nationwide boards haven't had discussions about Common Core because it's been top-down, backroom secrecy, and it has not been vetted out on the local level. And it needs to be vetted out on the local level. And parents need to get on their computers tonight and this weekend and start looking into this, because it's a complete sea change in our education system, in our testing standards. And unfortunately for Massachusetts, it means we're actually going to be dumbing down curriculum because our standards are so high, we're actually going to be dumbing down curriculum. But that said, I would just say let's have a lot of discussion about it, because it's a very, very important change that's coming, and it just hasn't been vetted, that's all.
Okay, let me just have, Gary raised his hand earlier, if you don't mind, I'm sure you won't mind him just.
No.
Hi, Gary.
Hi, Gary Fowler, 419 North Street. Just that Stu had asked, I think, some tough questions of you and had made some statements. And I do hope that, and I think I'm getting the impression that you're concerned about what you're hearing. You're gonna try to get some answers, and I think hopefully you'll maybe go from there, and if some of the answers you find are as scary as what some people say. I also, as was at the meeting on Tuesday night. I have no children in school at this point. My children have both graduated from Georgetown school system. I got grandchildren now that may be here one day. But it's the frightening part is about constitutionality, about the privacy, about the cost, as Stuart said. And yes, about one of the things that I heard that when Carol started talking about the MCAS was that you were able to work with them as it was going along. And one of the things I heard the other night was that this stuff is copyrighted and you will have
no choice.
No choice on any change on it. What that means to you, I don't know, because that was I think basically the testing.
Yeah,
And,
I think that's
you
what's
yes.
riling people up.
But, and the meeting, my take on the meeting when I left, I still have concerns about the Common Core and the park. But yes, the meeting the other night, it was ran by well, the speaker was a woman who was very involved in the MCAS, getting them in, and I remember. I remember
Sarah
many years
Stofsky,
ago,
yeah.
you know, and I didn't want to say this at the meeting because I might have been run out of here, but gee, weren't we having the same conversation about MCAS several years ago?
Probably,
You know,
Exactly,
That wasn't
Probably,
this the worst thing coming down the road?
Yeah.
And, but I think we worked through that.
Yes, we
And
did.
we got the
But
answers.
state
And,
legislature
you
was
know,
involved in
they-
that.
They were talking about someone, I don't know the name, and how he's in conflict of interest because he's
Oh,
the
the
chairman.
chairman of the,
Uh,
so
But-
he's,
Mitchell Chester.
Mitchell
Yeah,
Chester.
Mitchell
On the
Mitchell
other
Chester.
hand, the woman that was speaking the other night was, it sounded like very involved in developing NCAS.
She was,
And still somewhat involved in it, and so she may have been
Conflict of interest.
in as much of a
Conflict.
conflict there, because it's gonna be affecting her paycheck in some way.
Well, no, Gary, to qualify that one.
Her
legacy
She
is
was
what it's
on the
affecting.
committee
Yes.
for Common Core state standards for ELA.
Okay.
She said it didn't meet the standards and she resigned from it because she said
Okay.
it's
But I mean,
lowering
it's
the
just,
standard.
the meeting was, like I say, it was, as a citizen, it was somewhat frightening, because this could be the start of the federal government taking over controls of the school, taking it away from the town. And that's the part that, a lot of people took a lot of notes. I wrote down one thing, and that was, I don't think it's the proper way to say it, but yes, our school system should be run from the bottom up, not the top down. And that is scary if that is what's coming down the road. And so I hope that you do work to get some answers to it and continue the dialogue about it.
Well-
Whether you feel you need to go to a forum or not,
Whatever.
hopefully
You'll
you
figure it
get that
out.
answers as you go along.
Right.
But I do hope that you'll work, and I think Carol's shaking her head, I think she's gonna
Well, I'll
do
certainly
due
work
diligence.
with the committee.
And I mean, and it
Excuse
was like, as, I'll echo what Stu said, it was very good to see, you know, two school board committee members there concerned and taking your time to go there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
Thank
we're
you.
definitely not
Thank you.
solving it tonight, but I just wanted to start the dialogue and I don't know what the full answer is, you know, Elena, where we go as far as the information, but, you know, I know the district's good at communicating with parents, and, you know, when we were going to build the school, you know, you guys did a great job communicating. So I'm hoping the communication is as highly ramped up as it was for supporting the school being built on Common Core.
So that's I think where my question goes, so.
I think we need a lot of discussion and a
So,
lot of
obviously,
conversation.
your perception is that there's significant issues with it. I wanna make sure that the public is also interested and willing to listen to the other side, and to have an open mind, because I'm not sure, at the end of the day, when I see conflict, I usually ask, what is it that fixes this? What is your solution? What is it you're seeking? And if the seeking is, we want the committee to just abandon Common Core and take a huge stand against it, if that's the answer, that might not happen. So,
Right.
so what is the solution to this? What is it you're hoping?
You know,
Is it really just a conversation?
Personally, I'm totally against Common Core
I know.
and the whole thing, because
Right.
it's a, you know, not to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but it's a top-down federal takeover of education in America. And it's wrong. It shouldn't happen, and you folks have the power to stop it and not let it happen.
Okay, so what you'd like to see, perhaps, is that the committee take a strong stand similar to the one you're proposing.
Yes. Will that happen? Probably not. However, MCAS is a great program compared to what we're looking at for park and everything. Why wouldn't we go back to the state and advocate for MCAS
Well,
versus park and
that's
the
certainly,
Common
and
Core?
that's certainly being done,
And
Stu.
that would be an
Yeah.
action item that I think, you know, the board could certainly take, and various boards around, you know.
Well, I know
this
they
area.
mentioned that at the meeting the other night, that Worcester, that's what the Worcester Teachers Union was asking for, a
Yeah.
moratorium on the
Yeah,
park for
the
3
moratorium
years.
on park for 3 years, yeah.
Right.
yeah.
Because it's been, you know, I mean,
You
the
can't change
timeline was very aggressive
Yeah.
on park. And you're correct,
it's all been
when you talk
untested
about
and-
race to the top,
Yeah.
that race to the top money, when districts and states signed on to that, they signed on to a very aggressive timeline, which was part of why I said,
Right,
guys,
which
I
is
don't-
also
I-
untested.
understood, but that happens all the time. I mean, when we had MCAS, it was the same thing, it was like, boom, you gotta do it, and we were all like scrambling to.
I remember.
Yeah,
There
yeah,
were plenty
so-
of people screaming
Yeah.
about MCAS.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
in the same way and saying the same things.
But
Yeah, that's
MCAS
what
came
Gavin-
differently. MCAS was vetted through the legislature and through the bottom up. This is top down federal.
See, I
This
don't,
is
see,
different.
see, I disagree a little with that, Stu, and I would wanna
At
do
least
some,
the state is MCAS.
so.
Common Core and Park is
So when
national.
when
It's got
George,
nothing to
well,
do
wait a
with
minute though,
us.
when George W. Bush put in place No Child Left Behind, that was federal legislation. That was very top-down. That's it, that was top-down.
And I
And
disagreed
what-
with that at the
Okay,
time.
but what states then did is through their commissioners, through their process, MCAS and the Massachusetts state standards involve teachers and administrators at a very high level. They're actually writing the standards, believe it or not.
Right.
So that process has continued right along. So I think to say that the state education, local level people haven't had anything to do with it, I think that's maybe overstating it, because at every meeting I go to, it all comes out of the Massachusetts Department of Education. We cringe when we see something on our email because it comes out every day, every single day. I mean, if you wanted, I'd love to have a conversation about all the mandates, and that's all coming out. That's
Happy to have this conversation with
coming
you.
out of the federal government. It's the state's attempt to meet the goals of the federal government, but that's what we did when we did MCAS. That's what we did when we did No Child Left Behind.
Very different with this park, because like what Gary said, this is all copyrighted material. You can't change it. The state can't change it. The Board
the
of
test itself
Education
you're talking
can't
about?
change it.
That's
Any
what
of
they
it.
had said, there was
The
no
books,
revisions.
The curriculum, the test. It is
But I
copyrighted.
couldn't
There is
confirm
no
that.
chance for state boards
I couldn't confirm that.
or local boards to change it or tweak it. It is,
But we are.
but no.
Massachusetts is, well, no,
It won't
no,
be when it rolls down.
well, it's rolling down.
I
It's
know,
rolling
but
down.
when
They've
it-
been
when
very
it's fully
clear.
implemented, it's gonna be the standard across the United States, one size fits all, versus where Massachusetts is a high standard, maybe Louisiana isn't.
Right, Louisiana's got more of a concern.
yeah.
In Massachusetts, and actually, if you read a lot of stuff too, like you are, it'll actually say that this is really not a big issue in Massachusetts, because Massachusetts has always had these standards
Yes, but
in place.
it'll, in order for the bottom to come up, the top has to get squashed down.
No, in fact, what we're thinking with the park exams, Stu, is that, and this is the fear of everybody in Massachusetts around the park, because everybody for 10, 15 years has been working with the state standards and the MCAS. We've all gotten really used to making sure if the test aligns to the standards, then the students should do well, right? What's happening with Park, and this is why people are reacting so strongly, is it's a abrupt change without a full understanding of
Of the alignment.
why are you just abandoning MCAS? So what we anticipate is going to happen, and that's why they had to do a 2-year pilot, because the state had no choice but to say to the federal government, and the federal government had to hear it from all the states, you can't implement this new assessment this quickly because the standards haven't been fully aligned. So what they did is 1 year they had us take MCAS based on the old standards. Then as the alignment of the standards happened, the next year it was a combination.
Yeah.
And the following year it was aligned to the park standards. And the changes in that are the level of, which is where you get the SPED comment. The changes in that are that the students have to understand and be able to demonstrate a higher level of critical thinking, a higher level of analysis. I'll give you a quick example. On the MCAS test, you read a passage and you answer questions about it. And those questions, when MCAS came in, were tough because they weren't literal, like who's the main character.
Oh.
They were a question that had 3 or 4 different levels and layers of questions that required a lot more thinking. Park gives you 3 passages and asks you to look at those 3 passages and answer questions about how those things relate to one another. That's a much higher level of skill. And that's what districts are complaining about, because they're saying, oh my God, now we have to train our children to take a different kind of test. Not only is it on the computer, but the question types are very different. The level of analysis is very different. And that came out of this notion of college and career ready. Because for years we've all heard Kids are getting out of high school and they're taking remedial classes. That's really, you know where this is all being driven by? Business. Because the business community, which is how
Right,
Bill
they-
Gates
they
is involved,
totally signed on
they've
that.
said, we're hiring these people. They're coming out of these schools not ready for college and career. And the colleges are saying all these kids have to go to community college and then they're taking remediation. That's not happening in Georgetown. Really, it's not happening in Georgetown, but it is happening nationally and in other places. So I just want to make sure if we're having this conversation that, you know, we look at everybody's perspective based on the information they have. You have your information and I respect that. And I gave the committee, just so you know,
Yeah, we got all
background
pros
knowledge
and
and pros
cons.
and cons. There was not a
Yes,
pro, it was
Same
not a
lot
pro.
was-
I'm happy to share with you what I
Yeah, I'll
shared.
copy of it.
There's a bunch of different.
And,
Five
because,
different articles.
because, you know, there's not one way to think of any of this.
No, and of course, and that's really, I guess, the discussion point that we had, thank you, is with a major change like that, it should be vetted out, so. With that said,
Yeah.
you guys.
Well,
are
with that
great
said,
and
Stu, if
afforded
you
me
want to work with us,
Way more time than you should have.
I'll be more
Well,
than
I
happy
appreciate
to work with you and try and get somebody, but it would
Yeah.
need to be someone like, you know, like Pam was saying, you know, that is,
I think that's gonna be
there
really.
won't be
I
any
mean,
dialogue if it's pro and con. There just won't, because people
Yeah, I
will,
think-
and that's how I felt reading all these different articles on the internet. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not for it. And then I read another one.
And then you're like,
Oh,
well,
okay.
this one, yeah, that's not a bad piece, you know, no,
Yeah.
trust
I
me.
really
It's
think
about
it's
that.
The older you
effective
get, the older
where
you get, the
stand.
grayer everything gets, including your hair.
The only thing I would add, just listening to all the conversation tonight, is I agree with all the comments that everyone has said in terms of a discussion around curriculum. I do think we have a lot of very thoughtful discussion around it. What I would say, though, now being on the committee, is if you occasionally, you know, are at home watching this, or maybe you just hear about it in the community, you're not gonna pick up on any of this discussion, because you're not engaged
Yeah,
in
you're
it
not
enough.
engaged,
And really, the discussion is at 10,000 feet.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
No,
It's
you're
not-
That's what I
it's
would
not
say.
your
So I
world.
understand your point, and to some degree, I actually agree with it completely. We're up here, we're talking about it, we're getting
you're
constant
involved in it.
updates.
Yep.
Right, we're getting pre-read material, and we spend about 15 minutes on a topic.
Right.
So we're constantly building on our knowledge. No one in the community is doing
Right.
that. I think the challenge is, we do probably have to find a way to develop the appropriate communication strategy
Right.
for the community that really focuses on what is it, how does it affect
Mm-hmm.
my child, how is it going to affect their experience in school, and then what's our current state?
Yep.
You know, what are we doing about it? Similar to the discussion that
How
we
does it
just
compare to
had.
an MCAS versus
Right, how we
not,
made a
you know,
decision not to move
you know
to
what I mean?
PAC.
And exactly, and
And-
so I'd be
But
happy
you
to work
can
with you
put
guys
these
to
in kid
figure
nights,
that
Yeah,
out.
you
yeah,
can have a segment on it,
And it might not-
maybe
Park
bring
may-
someone
Kid
in.
nights, yeah.
Park may not be the assessment that
Right.
ends up. And because they've talked about next generation MCAS,
Mm.
which is going to, I'm
Right,
sure.
and that's, Stotsky said that.
Exactly.
the
So,
other night.
so I think it's sort of like the race to the top discussion,
Mm-hmm.
or not race to the top, race to nowhere, or
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
they're
yeah.
Race
because,
to nowhere?
but
That
well,
was
there,
a-
that's a there
yeah.
is a whole there was a whole
Documentary,
yeah, that's
documentary,
actually-
Oh, really?
and people
It's
were
about-
really agitated about how much pressure we're putting on kids.
Oh,
and-
yeah,
and-
for all the
and-
testing and all that.
Right. So you have these forums, and people, you know, listen and they get information,
Mm.
but you know, it's very pro one
Mhm.
side.
Well, and
Right, so
of
Yeah.
course.
this, I think, in order for it to be, because the committee has to ultimately determine, you know, is the curriculum as it's designed, you know, and as we're designing it and you know, using the MCAS result, is sufficient in their minds to say, we get the Common Core stuff, but you know what? We feel like it's being balanced in an appropriate way, and we're gonna continue to be vigilant about it, but we're not necessarily gonna abandon, because here's the challenge in my mind, and I'm not on the committee, but the challenge in my mind is that if part of our responsibility is to educate children to be successful in college and career, and if the way they're getting a high school diploma, right, I mean, this is being decided at a lot higher level than us, is being able to demonstrate proficiency on a body of knowledge, state standards, infused with Common Core, whatever you say, then, you know, to do anything other than to try to find that balance and try to be knowledgeable and understanding about what it is kids need to know and be able to do, if we don't prepare them for that, that's really a big decision. Right, because we need to fight this at the federal level, and the state needs, the legislatures, people, need to rise up. But at the local level, we still have a responsibility.
execute.
We still have to have a responsibility to teach a responsible curriculum that is aligned with the standards, clustered into units of study
Yep.
that students can access, and we can know that they're learning them.
Right.
Because if we don't do that, when they go to, if we go back to the days when I was a teacher and you could teach monarch butterflies and you never had to touch a magnet, or because you didn't like physical science and you weren't good at it, that wasn't good either, right? So the attempt here is to try to have some balance. And I think we're lucky to be in Massachusetts, because I don't think it's a stretch
Right.
like it is in these other states
Some
that
of these
have a
other
very
states
low
have-
standard.
Yeah.
So I think that's the dilemma we have. It's like we might agree that this is not what we would design if we had the ideal design,
Right.
but we still have these children who need to graduate
Right,
and
you
need to
still
meet
to
certain
execute
requirements.
Day in, day out. I
That's
understand
right.
that, and as the committee, you need to have that discussion. Is do you lobby the state? Do you work with other committees around the Commonwealth that and have discussions? Do you work in the Mass Teachers Association to have these discussion points? Because as the Board of Selectmen, I think, as an example, I think one of our more active gentlemen over here gets involved and he lobbies our Mr. Mira and Senator Tarr. And I know I lobby Senator Tarr. And also I think Dave Surface is really engaged with the State House.
Yes.
And our senator and representative, in the State House. So I would just encourage, this board to have members involved and engaged in the bigger picture. Not being just stuck in the weeds all the time, but looking at it strategically, because this is a sea change, and it's a very strategic change, and in the long run, I'm not convinced that this change that's being mandated from the top down is a good change for America in 100 years. And that's the prism that I look at it. That's how I look at it.
If I could offer you a different angle to view it from, because I haven't lived in Georgetown very long. I grew up in, I've lived in large cities. I've worked in large cities in education, and I can tell you that for all the changes that education has been through, outcomes haven't changed. The poorest people in our country continue to do poorly in school. School performance is always tied to economics. And so when I see these kinds of large-scale movements, I feel like it's coming from somebody who's saying something, the big picture has to change, because we continue to oppress through our systems the people who have historically been oppressed in our country. And that never changes. For every change that happens in education, you can still just go right back and look at family income and student performance. And that's the #1 indicator, and it has been for forever.
Level of
And at the end of the
education of the
day,
parent.
Elena, at the end of the day, you know where that comes from? That's called parental engagement, or not.
You know what? And I
That's what
think
it
that's
comes
a
down to at the end of
misguided
the day.
statement.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
what it comes
that's,
down to at the end of the day.
But I'll offer something positive in the sense that, everybody was really worried about students in these, poverty areas being, going to be left behind. And they were never, but the reality is no one ever believed that they could learn to higher levels. And when you look over time, over the last 15 years, and you look at those children who, in the past, it was like they were left behind, and the fact that they've shown improvement, and even in little Georgetown, we have children who start out in the lower grades at the warning level. And, you look at the MCAS results this year in English Language Arts, and there's 3 kids that aren't proficient in advanced, including special education students. So if we have a good curriculum, when we allow the standards to work, and we use the MCAS results in ways that are positive and proactive to make adjustments to the curriculum, to give support to students.
So we have this really, like, tiny little microcosm where the intention
Yes.
of MCAS is actually, it's actually
It's working.
taking hold. It's
Yeah, it's
working.
being used properly.
But if you look at that nationally,
Yeah.
you're not going to see,
Right.
right? The data doesn't hold, as I understand it, nationally the way it holds in these small communities where we have concerned
Well, their
educators and
challenges are
engaged.
different, yes.
There are different challenges.
Mhm.
So you
That's
take
why
a
would
federal.
one size fit all work?
Absolutely.
That's my whole point.
Absolutely, but
Education belongs in the local community, not top down from the federal government. That's all I'm saying. And there are many instances of students in lower economic environments and families that have excelled incredibly well, and it's because they had engaged teachers and the parents were engaged.
And there were standards.
But there's plenty of examples
And
from
there were
around the country
standards.
of low
That's the-
economic
that's-
areas
but
and
that's-
students excelling.
I think
Yeah.
there are examples, and the question is, how do we? And again, I don't know what my understanding is. The more we can tweak education,
Locally, tweak education.
but if we leave it locally,
Mhm.
if we leave that tweaking to be done only locally, then those poor communities
Yeah.
stay poor.
Or some districts, some states have low standards and kids get a graduation diploma,
Mhm.
Right.
and then they're not prepared
So
to
if the
work in
federal
the
government doesn't step in and say, okay, we want you doing this,
They should work with those poorly performing organizations.
And-
Here's the example
Yeah.
let me give you an example. As a manager,
Good point.
if I went across my employees and said, I got 10 employees and 3 of them aren't performing, but I'm going to treat everybody the same and I'm going to penalize everybody because the 3 aren't performing, are you for real?
but this
I work individually with the 3 individuals
But
to
they,
get them improving. I don't dumb down the rest of my crowd to bring the standards lower so these people can rise. No,
Absolutely.
I focus like a laser on the zombies that aren't getting the job done, and they move up or they move out. And the federal government to run down and say, look, we're going to treat everybody the same. That's a recipe for disaster. I'm just telling you, do your homework, under Common Core, this board will lose all control, and this superintendent will lose all control of any curriculum and any testing and anything else coming down the pike.
well, that would be alarming, and
That's all I'm saying is please do your homework.
Absolutely.
Like the gentleman said, Mike said, who was the school committee member for
From
18
Peabody.
years, from Peabody,
Yep.
or 19 years.
19
He
years.
said, you're the school committee, do your job and do your due diligence. I'm not convinced you or virtually any school committee in this state has done their due diligence on Common Core.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And I
Thank you.
appreciate it. And I'm happy to work with you guys to figure out just, I don't know, information, whatever, anything, let me know how I can help engage with you.
Well, if you're having somebody in the fall, so that would be soon,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would like to, talk to you about that.
Yeah, I'd love to, I'll circle around with you. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I know
Thank
it
you.
was a long, I don't know, what, an
Great.
hour, maybe 2?
No,
Sorry.
not to.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
guys have a great night.
Thank you.
Go home and go to bed.
So I have just something, just
Oh, you're
really
gonna leave?
quick.
I'll see how it is.
Very.
Remember, we got 3 more hours to go, come on.
No, 4 hours. So I only had a couple other things. One was, I would just want to make sure that people at home are hearing that the community meeting that we're talking about with Mr. Pollock from the DEP, the risk assessor that will talk to us about naturally occurring arsenic. He's kind of come, I believe it's October 19th, right, Laura?
October 16th.
16th, October 16th.
Thursday, it's a Thursday night.
Thursday night. And what we'll do is we'll post it on the community board. We'll obviously make sure it's on the websites. I will closer to the time send a Connect Ed message out to just remind people about it. I will send an email out to all the boards in town and invite them. So I was thinking that we might have a smaller group, meet with him beforehand and maybe vet some of the questions that we might have or we anticipate the community might have. And then, we'll see who comes, and I'd like to have Charlie tape it just for the benefit of the community members who can't come. I think we sort of have thought then around just about what everybody the communication loops that anybody, we'll put it on Facebook.
It is on Facebook.
Yes, we'll
yes.
tweet it.
As an event,
As an event.
and somebody suggested that we actually create an event, so it was a perfect event to create a Facebook event
Yeah.
for people to sign up.
Who's handling the Twitter?
Well,
Now
we're
that
working
we're-
on that.
Oh, okay, because we had a student doing that graduated.
We'll do some, we're talking about getting some authorization
We
for
can-
Michael and
We
Pam.
can put it on Yik Yak too, if
And
you'd
we can
like.
put it on your
Well, I don't want to promote that site.
Well, we're trying to turn that around, and then.
In the public relations committee meeting, the subcommittee meeting that we had, that was the topic, and we can
Michael
update
did some
you on
further
that.
homework.
Yes, Michael came up
Alana,
with a very
and,
good,
came up with a good
excellent
strategy.
discovery.
But anyway, I know I generated a few questions here that
Yeah.
came off to, are on my mind, that I've heard people kind of ask me. But if you have any particular questions, obviously Mr. Locke would love to hear them in advance so he can just know, what kinds of things you might want to know about. So if there's anything other than these, or you don't, you think that these need to be tweaked on, it was really just a brainstorm on my part.
So again, that's
that was great.
Thursday,
That's
October
Thursday,
16th.
October 16th.
At the middle high
Don't
school.
come on the 19th, on the 16th.
That's like a Saturday
You're
night,
right.
I don't think you'll.
And then the building project updates, there's not a lot to report. Things are moving along very rapidly. We do have a piece of business we're gonna ask you to talk about tonight because there was a slight issue on the building project at the turf field in the digging of the poles for the lights, which have to go down very deep, like 25 feet. They're very tall poles. There was an issue of hitting ledge that didn't appear in the boring that was done, because they did do boring samples. So this is something that, unfortunately, we really, I talked to Barbie, but we really had to authorize it in advance, because the company was going to take their
Their
trucks
toys and leave.
and all those things, and then we would have had to pay to have them all come back. If they didn't have a guarantee they were gonna be paid, they weren't gonna stay on the job, and that would have been unfortunate for us. So, we did check the budget, it's going into the contingency, there's not much contingency left there. As I included Lindsay's email just for your benefit, and you can see she's concerned about the contingency. But hopefully the other two holes that are left, they had apparently gone up, and there had been some digging, some initial digging done, and it didn't appear like they were running into a problem. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that that's really the kind of the last big, keep your fingers crossed. Everything else, they've pretty much cleared 70 to 80% of the field has already been cleared. So it's really this hill that's the issue, and otherwise, they're moving forward. On that, the Pembroke, you wanted the
Can I
Pembroke
just ask
too?
you about
Oh, yes.
something just about this email?
Yes.
So, I know Lindsay has asked for a point of contact. And
Yes.
luckily you were available yesterday, that everybody was able to, you were able to fit them
Yes.
in, and
Yes.
so, are you gonna be their point of contact?
Well, I certainly can be, because
'Cause I remember we
it's
talked
easy.
about Joan maybe being it. I thought we talked about.
No, I think we talked about John being it, John Pingree, and then
Oh.
we were like, John
Yeah, he
has a job, and that's a
Right.
so. I'm always on my cell, and if I weren't available, then I would delegate it to Joan. But like, for example, when they came over to talk to me about the problem, I didn't feel I had the authority to agree to it. So that's why I contacted Barbie. If I couldn't have found Barbie, I would have gone to Pam. Because it really, you're the ones that would have be, sanctioning the money, the spending of the money. And obviously, if it wasn't something that we were literally going to incur a lot more expense if we stopped the job, and then, came and got approval and then brought them all back.
Yeah.
It seems like a reasonable, reasonable process here.
We need to approve that,
Yes, you
right?
will need to approve that. I would just point out on the Pembroke project, you had wanted a tour.
Yes.
So one of the things that we're trying, I think Ellie Sinkowitz is scheduling a tour before the next building committee meet.
October 14th?
October 14th.
Just for the
So
school, the school committee and the school building.
Yeah, so it
committee.
kind of made sense to have you go that same night if you could. That way, you know, the contractor can work it all, can work it all out. So if you could do that, 6 o'clock on the 14th.
October 14th.
Yeah,
Yes,
October
closed-
14th.
Closed-toed shoes. I have to
Yeah,
remember that.
closed-toed shoes. I go over there all the time with my little party shoes on, you know, they don't let me in. But, you know, closed-toed shoes.
No, I heard it from him.
Okay?
Okay,
And
that's
then
good.
that's really, unless you have specific questions, that's, you know, given the time and everything, I think we just move on.
I'm sorry, what's that date again?
This
October
14th.
It's a Tuesday.
Okay.
Do we want to go ahead and approve this now, since we're talking
Sure,
about
if
it?
you want to.
Did you all have a chance just to
Yeah.
take a look at it? Okay. So the chair will entertain a motion to,
Can I ask a quick
Sure.
question? Just purely curious, you know, it's talking about kind of running out of the contingency money. I'd
Yeah.
just be curious to know,
What happens?
well, I guess what happens, but also how close.
close.
Close,
I mean,
like within
I
$10,000.
think it's
okay,
like
so another
four,
problem like
isn't
this would be a
And
great problem.
And is
Anywhere.
that where,
And we
like,
have to
it's kind
petition
of
the
to be
town.
expected?
Yeah.
No,
I
it
get
wasn't
that.
to be expected.
Okay. So we're running,
It wasn't to be expected, but, because they had done
I mean,
borings
I
in
know
that
the
area.
ledge wasn't expected, but
Right.
just the level of where we are with the contingency fund.
No, that was always, it was always tight. It was always tight, because
Yeah,
there
we
were
were-
things that you remember, we made adjustments to the field layout, and then we had to do the conservation, remember, had us do those extra
Right.
reports. Those were all things that we hadn't thought we were gonna need to do, so they all
Right.
came out of that
Yeah.
money.
Okay.
Lindsay, from Gale Associates way back, I remember they were all very concerned about the amount of contingency that we had.
We were only carrying like a 3% contingency, and really.
What's the normal?
10.
Is it that high?
Yeah.
Okay.
5 to 10, you know, depends on the project.
Let's
But,
just hope
you know,
that everything
that's why I
else-
said I'm really hoping that these next 2 holes go in very, very smoothly, because the only other thing I can think of, if that were to be a problem, there's a town meeting, special town meeting coming up at the end of October. You know, perhaps, the Board of Selectmen would entertain putting something on, because it's nothing that anybody could have anticipated.
Right,
To see if the town would be willing to, you know,
Add some-
pay for the cost of whatever that overrun would be. But we're just really hopeful at this point, given the preliminary digging that they've done, that they're not gonna run into the same problem.
Is this like the first light that's gone in?
No,
No.
they've already got 3 holes
So this is the last
dug.
light?
No,
There's two
there's, altogether there's 6.
Okay, oh,
So there's
okay,
4
we
that
got
light the
6.
football, you know, the multi-purpose field, and then there's 2 poles for the baseball, but remember, there's not
We
gonna be
didn't
any
have the money.
lights, there's not gonna be any lights on them yet, that's
Oh,
the second
that's
phase.
it.
But we were
That's
still
what I
putting
was
it
where I
in,
was-
so
But they're
we
putting
didn't have
a
to
pole
cut
in.
the
Got it.
field.
Got it. So are those other 2 that still have to be dug
I'm telling you that,
against the?
they're on the
Where
hill,
are
they're
they?
on the hill, but they did some preliminary digging, Quirk, which is the contractor, did some preliminary digging and went down, 14 feet or something, and didn't find anything.
Okay.
So they need to go down deeper, so keep your fingers crossed that there's nothing lower, but they don't anticipate that there's going to be a problem. So we're gonna find out. You don't know till you get in there, right?
This project is gonna be so great when it's done,
So
but
great.
it really has had its share of
Challenges.
obstacles that
Challenges.
we, yeah.
Nothing's really run smoothly,
Yeah, it hasn't, but,
but it's gonna be great.
yeah. Okay. The chair will entertain a motion to approve change order proposal number 2 from Quirk Construction Corporation, in the amount of $27,875 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. So we can go that. Are we jumping right along?
We are. So where are we?
Okay, to the subcommittee.
Oh, yeah, I think you're.
Four.
About the open day enrollment.
Oh, that's.
Oh, do you wanna talk about, do you have questions about it? Usually I just
No.
ask if you have any questions about the superintendent's
Oh,
information that she
okay.
provided. Do
No?
you wanna talk about any of?
No, I
Any of
didn't
that?
have anything to point
No?
out. There is information on the joint conference if anybody's interested in going to that. So I just wanted you to have that.
And we would let Laura know on that.
And Links for Learning, they made $9,000.
Yeah, I heard that.
on
That's great.
It was awesome. I mean, it was so well run, as it
I know,
always
where's my
is,
booklet?
and
I
the
know.
golfers had such a great time. But you know, for this year, there were fewer golfers, and they, you know, they just did a did it so well and got so many nice sponsors that they made $9,000. Which
Yeah,
is
I was
really
looking at that.
awesome.
Excellent.
It's always such a fun day, and I know
It
that
is.
I
Weather was
drove by the
beautiful.
club, and it was a beautiful day.
Beautiful day.
Maybe we can hit them up. Problems at the field, right?
Yeah, it was nice to see the different names that were
Yeah, I
on
wanted you to
here.
have the brochure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
yes.
nice. That's great. $9,000
And-
in one day. That's
Yes,
great.
yes.
A lot of work goes into that event.
Yes, it does.
Okay, so we're gonna move along to the subcommittee reports. Budget and finance, we haven't met. Governance, you guys had a
No.
meeting.
We didn't
Okay.
meet this week.
Negotiating, we do have to make a meeting date in October,
Yes,
we
we
talked
do.
about, so we will, do that. Public relations,
Yes, we had a meeting.
great.
Very, very productive. And as I mentioned earlier, Michael has realized that a school can geofence Yik-Yak so that students cannot use Yik-Yak on school property or
Oh,
around.
like Instagram, cause I don't
School
think, I
property.
think we block Instagram.
You can?
Do we?
I think we do.
That might be the
Okay.
school like filtering out
Oh.
access to the website.
Okay.
This is Yik Yak actually. They use the GPS in your phone to figure out where you are, and what the geofencing does is if you're within the circle of the school, it won't let you use it,
Access it.
post, receive, do anything. It says, and I was outside of Chelsea High School, which was a weird spot for me to realize it, but it said something to the effect of Yik Yak is for adults. You appear to be near a school.
Oh,
It's-
wow,
Disactivate or deactivated.
that's interesting.
So, and from what I've read, they're pretty proactive about.
So how do we ask for that?
There's I emailed.
Yep. I
Wes.
sent a note to Barry and Wes,
Yeah.
and then Michael followed up with the actual.
Apparently, you
Right,
just
way to
ask
do
them
it.
to do it. They use. I guess they have a huge. It's based on a real estate database where they say like what schools different houses send to, and they've mapped. I think they said something like 80% of school districts or school buildings in the
Okay.
country, and it's just. I guess ours aren't because I was in Pearlie and it worked. So it's just a matter of kind of asking them to do it. And from what I understand, they're pretty good about doing it.
That's great.
So.
Well, because as Alana pointed out at the last meeting, you know, it wasn't designed for negative. You
Right.
know, it was designed for a good purpose. So
I don't know, how
Hey.
can any website that offers anonymous
Well,
anonymous
Well,
thing, not expect that they're gonna get
oh,
negative.
I don't know that they don't expect it, but
Yeah,
it wasn't.
I know it
designed
wasn't
for that.
designed,
It
but-
shouldn't be used
but-
on
Yeah.
school
Well,
property
yeah.
You're right.
during school hours.
Yeah, absolutely.
to their credit, it sounds like they got a lot of bad press
Yeah,
a
they did.
year and a half ago, and that's when they added in the geofencing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never
Aspect,
heard of it, I
so.
only heard of it this month.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it was new. They creep up like that, though. What was that other one, the FM?
The Ask.
Yeah, Ask FM, that was the same thing. We only heard about it actually through a student issue.
Yeah.
And that's,
Mhm.
so, you know, we don't always know about them, even as proactive as we try to be.
Right. Okay.
So, and you had asked about Twitter and Facebook.
Mhm.
And so Carol has asked Barry to authorize, Michael is going to go on to Twitter and I'm
Oh,
gonna be
great.
able to post to Twitter, use Twitter. I'm gonna have to become a little more Twitter savvy. You sound very Twitter savvy, so I'm sure you'll do a fabulous job. But as we discussed, it's best to make it a collaborative effort. And you're going to have administrators and principals able to access this. So if they have something they want to announce to get the news out on, they'll be able to do that.
Right.
Yeah, it just works when there's a group of people to
Yeah.
be able to find the most important information to get out to the public. And we also continue to discuss Let's Talk. Carol gave me and Michael too, some names of people in districts that are using it, that Jesse Lee provided.
In
And we will
Massachusetts?
get in touch with. We've already contacted, I've tried contacting some people, but we just want more. More data is better in this case. And, you know, I was thinking maybe we could provide to the school committee, you know, some kind of summary of what the, you know, what the pros are, what the cons are. Not to get too much back to that, but, you know, just to, so that it's really, really clear exactly what this is all about and what the financial structure, what that would be and everything, so that we can discuss it further, and with the goal of trying to have a final decision within a month. That's a, and to put it, and possibly to put it into the strategic plan that we're gonna be discussing next month. Maybe to increase communication with the public via the Let's Talk tool. And we could just talk about rollout training, if we decide that this makes sense for us, it's an appropriate way to go. So we'll continue to discuss that. We discussed the district satisfaction survey. And Carol brought up that she might try to, you know, might be able to negotiate with the Let's Talk, the K-12, is it K-12
Insight.
Insights, yes. They might be able to possibly do a survey for us in addition to the Let's Talk. And in any case, we'll be considering different forms of district satisfaction surveys, which we have been for some time. So it's time to act on it and, you know, come together with that. We're also gonna be looking at a communication plan. We have compiled all the different school committee strategies that touch on communications and touch on our responsibility to inform the public and get news out and to listen to the public and hear from the public, and it's a two-way conversation, two-way dialogue. So we're gonna be looking at all those, and it's not that, what with a communication plan, it wouldn't be a policy per se, it's more of a statement in one place that kind of summarizes our policies, our goals, our directions. We've got an example from another district that we looked at and we really like, so we're just gonna play around with it. See what we can come up with. That's something we're gonna be, so that's a goal for the year to come, to work on that.
That would be in the strategic goal under communication.
Yes. Can you think of anything else,
No, that's
Michael?
it, you did a
Yeah, I
good
think
job.
that was-
You did a good job, that's what I recall the meeting being.
Okay. School building? Right, there was a school building committee, it's meeting, it was maybe a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And in the Pembroke, most of the conversation centered around the septic system. And how we had to go down 8 feet further because the quality of the soil has to be a
Yeah, we talked
particular,
about that.
right. And that's going to eat into the contingency
Right.
money there, except that the contingency money there is where you'd expect it to be.
More
It's kind of,
robust.
it's more robust, right, so
Yeah.
that's all, it's doable to.
I was really hoping the project would come in,
Under budget?
under budget.
It's still under budget.
It's,
Yeah, well, that's good.
it's doing
That's
well in
good.
terms of both the time schedule and the budget.
Okay.
And then we discussed the high school and just the need to coordinate with the roofers when we put on the new roof with the heat condensing units that are we will have to put up on top because the ones that we have aren't working. So it's just a matter of coordinating between, it's a
Oh,
It's a
so
big
they
matter,
don't
it has
have
to be done.
Cut into the new
Right.
roof and.
exactly,
Right, so
the
I
timing of
think
it
the
all, the
finance and-
contractors have to be.
Finance and Advisory Board is discussing
Talking
it at
to each
their
other.
next meeting.
Okay.
Because if you recall, in the budget season last year, things were moving.
Oversight.
And the discussion was that, okay, well, we'll give $25,000 to replace the ones that are not working. And the others that have sort of at their end of their useful life would be, done at another time, knowing it would be this year. The question is whether or not you would need to appropriate the money at the fall town meeting or spring town meeting. The problem with the spring town meeting is that the roofing project, the day school gets out, the roofers wanna go in there, so, that's cutting it close, and you have to put bids out, and you have to do all those things in advance. So, you're not gonna do that unless you know you have the money. So I think that will be a discussion at the upcoming meeting at the very end of October, the heating units.
Okay. Got it.
That's
Is
it,
that
yep, yep.
Okay.
And then, with CPAC, the Special Education
You
Parents
met?
Advisory Council, no, but our first meeting of the year is gonna be October 1st
Oh, okay.
at the Pembroke School Library.
Is that next Wednesday?
Yeah, it's coming up next week.
Yes. 7 to 8:30 p.m. and it will be a meet and greet, chance to sit down with Dr. Donna Straight, our Director of Special Education, and perhaps some other staff members.
Mm-hmm.
And just, you know, for all the parents to get together and say hello and get reacquainted and see if we can help each other, be there for each other, ask any questions that might be helpful to others. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. I hope people will attend.
Okay, I did skip over, approval under financial report, approval of the attorney's fees and the turf field. That was a large invoice. Where is it?
The turf field?
Yeah, so it's for the attorney fee.
Oh, that was the discussion, that is for the services around the use and donation agreement. Attorney Mullen?
Correct.
That's what that's
Yeah,
about.
for the turf.
Yes, around the
Okay.
turf project. Yeah.
Okay, so we need to approve that. The chair will entertain a motion to approve, invoice number 13806 from Thomas, Attorney Thomas Mullen in the amount of $570 dated September 7th, 2014 as presented.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? And then we also have the $238,000 to Quirk.
Oh, for the change order.
Oh, and you know what, the 570 is included in that. Laura, what do I do on that? Can you do the math quickly, or would I just change the motion? Because the 238 includes the 570.
Oh, I see.
The second amount is up here, though.
Which
Can't
is
you just
general contract.
approve them for 238,
Oh, okay, yeah, can I do
Yeah,
that?
just read
Yeah,
that.
just do that, Temple.
Okay.
'Cause you were- yeah.
What's the matter?
Yeah, I was gonna say, Joan's done it in two
Yeah, she's
separate
just-
paragraphs, so I think it's two
Okay.
separate votes.
So the chair will entertain a motion to approve, there's no invoice number. Invoice number 531-01 to Quirk Construction Corporation in the amount of $238,316.05 dated September 19th, 2014 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Okay, sorry, I forgot that. Okay. Can we just, move on to old business?
Yeah, we can.
Policy ADDA, background checks. The chair will entertain a motion to, approve policy file ADDA, titled background checks, as presented.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And the chair will entertain a motion, to approve policy file ADDA-R DJIS, which is the quarry approval form as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay. Now we have a Camp Kiev, donation, which is always nice. That was left over from the 5th grade celebration. And so that will go to, help offset the cost for the current 6th grade to go to Camp Kiev.
Great.
That's very nice.
That is very nice,
Very
yeah.
nice.
So the chair will entertain a motion to accept the Camp Kiev donation from the 5th grade celebration committee in the amount of $702.99 dated August 26, 2014 as presented.
So moved.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And then we just have to update the collaborative agreement because there was a community that has been removed.
Yes.
That's Hamilton, Wenham, is
Yes.
being removed from the collaborative.
Yes, so we've approved this agreement before,
Yeah.
but the Hamilton Wenham, which never really participated a lot, so it makes sense that they would wanna, take themselves out, left at a time before the state has given final approval, and so therefore we need to reapprove it. But that's the only difference.
So the chair will entertain a motion to approve the collaborative, the document collaborative for regional educational services and training with the removal of Hamilton Wenham as presented.
So moved?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And just for
Wanna go
more,
back to you?
sure, yes, yeah. And just for more information, there are 3 other communities in Massachusetts who wanna get into Quest,
Yeah, I
so
saw
it's
that,
not
that's
as
great.
if, yeah.
Right, it's not that people are abandoning it,
Right.
Right. right. So will they try to
And
get in
some
for this?
leave, some come in.
So will those 3 communities get in this year, like?
I
and
believe it would be starting next July 1st. It wouldn't be.
I think so.
Yeah. it
Yeah,
wouldn't
they
be
have to
this
wait
year.
until
They
the,
get an awful lot
It's
of
a-
interest from, southern New Hampshire.
yeah, I saw that in.
Yes,
there.
They have
Yeah.
a lot of their districts that they work with are just over the border.
But they won't be able to be full members.
won't be able
No,
to be,
they'll
no.
have to have another designated type of
Right. Designation. Yeah,
status.
yeah. Yes, I know, but I was interested when I was going to the board meetings to know that. I didn't realize that.
Mm.
But it makes sense
Thank you
because
for
of
all
their
the
proximity.
notes and everything on those meetings, though.
Oh, sure,
that
you're
you give
welcome.
us. And then the topic, I'm glad that you included that in this package, just the topics for upcoming meetings.
There's just so many
Yeah.
things we could talk about, and then tonight, for example, we could add 3 meetings just on discussion about curriculum, so. And these were just the ones we've sort of done in the past, you know. and-
Right, so it's
and-
not just limited to this, if you.
No,
think of
absolutely not,
anything
no,
that
no, no.
You wanna discuss, or you think that it's like a hot topic that you're hearing like people talk about in the community, if you just wanna.
But when Barbie and I
let
are
us know.
building the agendas, you know, we wanna have it be about what, I mean, you have certain business you have to do. You know you're gonna do budgets, you know you're gonna approve handbooks, you know you're gonna do strategic plans. But these are more for discussion and information and public
Right.
edification, you know, so.
I do just wanna mention that this Saturday night, the PTA is having,
yes.
a great
yes.
fundraiser that I don't think they've ever done before. It sounds really fun, and the weather's gonna be perfect.
Yes.
They're doing it out of Newburyport, it's like a boat,
Yeah, it's
They're
the
going on a
captain's
cruise.
lady.
3,
which
yeah.
I've been on
Sounds
that, and
like a
that's
blast.
great.
It's really fun. And Scott Jones is gonna do DJ music. You know,
Yeah.
he's gonna do DJ, and there's
I
food
hate to say, I don't
and
even know if
snacks.
there's tickets available.
There are, I think.
There are, there's
Okay.
still, yeah, it's up, I mean, Jill sent out a,
Yes.
email
Rachel,
today,
Okay, good.
yeah, to
So people would
reference, so-
contact
You
her?
can
It's
get them.
Rachel.
It
There
actually
was
says
actually
that
a-
you can get them at the door, so.
Oh.
yes, you probably can.
Okay.
Because I'm sure they had to pay a certain amount of money, and so
Yeah.
now obviously, you know, they're
There may
bringing
not
more
be
people
that,
even at the
yeah,
last
sure.
minute
Yeah.
might be able
And
to
then
do it.
there is information on the Georgetown Public Schools Facebook page and
Yes.
About that?
a contact,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, good.
To
Yeah,
get
it's
tickets.
Rachel.
Okay.
Yes.
Great fundraiser, great organization.
Great
We definitely
idea.
wanna
Yeah.
support these organizations that help us, the GEF, the PTA, like the preschool parents group, it's amazing what
Sports
what these
boosters.
groups do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, and not to
Music
mention the
parents.
public,
Very hard.
just the private donations that
Oh,
we
yeah,
get too. So
absolutely.
if you have anything, if you wanna do anything on Saturday night, head out to Newburyport.
Don't have plans.
So, there is no need for an executive session, so the meeting.
So what do you wanna do about these topics? But it's kinda late to talk about them
Well,
unless you,
I don't know, I thought you wanted us to rank them
but we
individually.
can,
and then
yes,
we
and then we can take them if you have feedback. We can then take a look at them and say, gee, what, you know, what
I
sort
didn't
of
rank
makes
mine.
it.
I didn't do
Yeah.
that.
I need to spend.
Well, you know what,
a lot
then
of
no,
time
then
on
no
it.
worry, then you know what, then no worries,
Thank you, I
we don't
needed
need
to
it
hear
today.
Because I need more time on this.
Yeah, we don't
School
need
calendar.
it today, but we'd like to, you know, probably sometime in October be able to put it in your packet
Okay.
so that you can see how, you
Sure.
know, but your input is, it's your meeting, so it's really important for you to feel like you have a lot of say in what we put together, and then our job is to make sure you have what you need to make your decision.
I can email you ideas.
Oh,
on
yes,
that.
whatever works, as long as it just comes into Laura and I,
Okay.
and then I'll meet with Barbie and we'll figure out, you know, how we
Okay,
can lay it out.
great.
But it's a good start.
Yeah, very good. Yeah.
Okay.
Welcome.
So again, no need for an executive session, so the meeting is adjourned at 9:29. Have a good night.
Okay.
Thanks.
Good night.